Hello and welcome back, guys. We're now starting a new story, I Bleed in BPM, by Blue Jays. You can find author's profile link in the description. Let's begin chapter 1, The Way I Am. The fluorescent lights in the doctor's office buzzed faintly overhead. Too loud. Too white. Too quiet. Izuku sat on the crinkling paper of the exam table, kicking his feet nervously. His mom sat beside him, her hands clenched tight in her lap. Dr. Tsubasa clicked through his holographic display with a look Izuku didn't like, brows furrowed, mouth pulled tight. Then came the words. "It's rare," the doctor said slowly, like he was trying to soften them. "But it does happen. He's quirkless." Inko gasped. Her hands flew to her mouth. Izuku didn't move. He didn't cry. Not yet. But he wants to be a hero, she whispered. The doctor looked away. "I'm sorry." Izuku didn't remember much after that. Just the way the world sounded when they stepped outside. Muffled. Like cotton stuffed in his ears. Like something inside him had gone silent. The sidewalk tiles blurred under Izuku's sneakers as he walked, staring down. He didn't cry. Not yet. His throat burned with the effort of holding it in. Inko didn't say much. She clutched her purse to her chest and kept a hand on his back. "I'm sorry, Izuku," she whispered again. He just nodded, small and silent. As they waited for the crosswalk light, she dug through her bag and pulled something out. Her old music player. The one with the pink heart sticker on the back, half scratched away. "Here," she said gently, offering him the tangled headphones. "Maybe, this will help a little." He took them. Slowly. Slid them on. Pressed play. Song, Demons, by Imagine Dragons. When the days are cold and the cards all fold and the saints we see are all made of gold. The bass thrummed softly in his ears. The sound settled something in his chest. It didn't fix the aching hole, but it covered it, for a moment. They turned a corner to cut through a side street, like they always did when coming back from the clinic. Then the shadow stepped out. "Wallet," the man snapped. Hood pulled low. Something glinted in his hand, long and sharp. Inko gasped and stepped in front of Izuku. I don't have it, I swear," she said, raising both hands. "Wrong answer." The mugger's face twisted into something awful. "Then you'll have to give me something else." He stepped forward. Izuku's heart jumped in his chest. "No matter what we breed, we still are made of greed. This is my kingdom come, this is my kingdom come." His ears rang. No, not from fear. From the music. His muscles tensed. His fingers curled. It felt like lightning under his skin. Quick time slows. The mugger lunged. Izuku moved. Not fast, explosive. A blur of green sneakers and a clenched fist. Something in his brain snapped, and his body moved on instinct, flinging itself between his mother and the knife. He didn't know how to fight. He just screamed. But the punch landed. The mugger flew back. Hit the brick wall with a sickening thud. Crumpled. Izuku stood there shaking, chest heaving. A sharp pain flared through his neck and shoulders like static backlash. His nose started bleeding. Inko's hands were on his face, checking him, saying his name over and over. He blinked. The music still played. "Don't get too close, it's dark inside, it's where my demons hide." His headphones sparked. Then shattered. He collapsed. The steady beeping of the heart monitor was the first thing Izuku noticed. The second was the dull ache in his bones. His eyes fluttered open to white lights and pale walls. The hospital. Then, sweetheart. His mom. Her voice cracked as she leaned over, tears already slipping down her cheeks. She squeezed his hand tight like she was scared to let go. "You're okay," she whispered. "You're really okay." He blinked at her, confused. What happened? Before she could answer, the door creaked open. A man stepped in, older, with kind eyes and a rumpled brown coat. He wasn't wearing a uniform, but he had that tired energy all cops seem to carry. Izuku, huh? The man asked gently, glancing at the chart. I'm Detective Tsukachi. I've been speaking with your mom. Izuku shrank back slightly, unsure what to say. He's only 4, Inko said quickly, defensive. He's never shown signs of a quirk. I didn't even think, he just moved. Tsukachi gave a small, understanding nod. I know. We checked. His registry still marks him as quirkless. But that man you stopped. He's got 3 broken ribs and a dislocated shoulder. Izuku flinched. I didn't mean to, I know, Tsukachi interrupted calmly. And I believe you. Something about the way he said it made Izuku blink. Then the detective laughed softly, shaking his head. Still can't believe a 4-year-old took down a grown man like that. Poor guy looked like he got hit by a car. Inko frowned. But how is that possible? His quirk test came back negative. They said. Tsukachi reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a simple white card. Naomasa Tsukachi, Special Crimes Division. And beneath that, in small print, quirk, truth sense. He handed it to Inko gently. Most people don't develop late quirks. But it's not impossible. And sometimes, quirks don't show up the way we expect. He turned to leave, pausing by the door. That's when Izuku sat up a little, his voice barely more than a whisper. Wait, Tsukachi turned back. Izuku swallowed, clutching the edge of his blanket. You mean? I can be a hero. The detective looked at him for a long moment. Then smiled, just a little. I think, he said, you already acted like one. And with that, he left, the door clicking softly shut behind him. Izuku stared at the card on the bedside table. He hesitated. Then added, I've got a friend. When Izuku's a little older, and if things start happening again, give me a call. He's dealt with sound-based quirks before. He paused by the door, casting one last look at the boy in the bed, small, wide-eyed, good instincts, kid, Tsukachi said with a half-smile. Just, try not to break anyone else in half for a while, yeah. Then he left, still chuckling quietly to himself. 10 years later, age 14, last year of middle school, most people still didn't believe he had a quirk. Didn't matter. Izuku adjusted his headphones, the ones with the reinforced audio limiter he'd built into the side. A decade of testing, trial, and more nosebleeds than he could count, and he still didn't fully understand it. But he knew one thing, it was real. And it was his. The hallway buzzed with noise as students shoved their way to class. A sharp laugh rang out down the corridor. Bakugou. Izuku didn't flinch, didn't even look. He kept walking. 10 years ago, that laugh would have stopped him cold. Now, Bakugou was still a pages. Nothing new there. But Izuku didn't care. Not anymore. He'd spent the last decade with music in his ears and notebooks in his backpack, tracking BPM spikes, emotional triggers, song structures. Some tracks gave him speed. Others, pain tolerance. A few nearly stopped his heart. His quirk was unpredictable, dangerous, and unlike anything he'd seen in any hero registry. And today he might finally get answers. Detective Tsukachi had kept his promise. He and Izuku's mom had stayed in touch over the years, birthday cards, random check-ins, even the occasional old support gear article mailed to their apartment. But this time, he'd sent something new, a name. A friend. Someone who specialized in sound-based quirks. Someone who might actually get what Izuku was. He could still feel the weight of that card in his jacket pocket. And now, after school, he was going to meet them. Izuku took a slow breath, thumb brushing over the play button on his music player. One of his safer tracks, Run Boy Run, by Woodkid, just to keep his nerves steady. This world is not made for you, his pulse evened out. Today was the beginning of something. The second the final bell rang, Izuku was out the door. He weaved through the crowds like a thread through fabric, moving fast, head down, hoodie up. His heart thumped in rhythm with the song pumping through his ears. Run boy run, this world is not made for you. The beat dropped, and so did the hesitation. Izuku moved. His sneakers slapped the pavement hard as he took off down the sidewalk, arms pumping, backpack bouncing behind him. The world around him sharpened, colors clearer, sounds crisper, like the volume of life had been turned up to max. He could feel it, the faint tingle at the base of his neck, the rush of heat building in his chest. The familiar crackle beneath his skin. The quirk was kicking in. He grinned. Just a little. Run boy run, they're trying to catch you. He vaulted over a low fence, hit the ground hard, and kept running. He knew quirk usage was illegal outside of hero training. Especially in public. Especially without a license. But it's not like anyone could see it. His quirk didn't glow or spark or light up the sky. It was internal. NTMT. Only a few people even knew he had one. Most still thought he was quirkless. Weak. Invisible. Let them think that. Let them stare when he stumbled into class late with a nosebleed and a tremor in his hands. They didn't see the spreadsheets. The testing logs. The trial playlists. They didn't see what he was building in secret. Run boy run, this race is a prophecy. He turned a corner sharp enough to skid, heart hammering, lungs burning. But he didn't stop. He couldn't. Because today wasn't just another after-school experiment. This wasn't about testing pain thresholds or recording reaction times. Today, he was going to meet someone who might understand. Someone who could tell him what he was. He sprinted up the hill toward his apartment complex, legs aching but steady. The song climbed to its crescendo, and he pushed harder. Not because he had to. Because he wanted to. Because when the music was loud enough, when the world blurred around him, he didn't feel broken. He didn't feel forgotten. He felt powerful. By the time Izuku reached the stairwell of his building, the song had ended. His legs felt like lead. His hoodie clung to his back, soaked in sweat, and his lungs burned with every breath. But he couldn't stop smiling. That run, it felt good. Controlled. Balanced. 3 minutes and 36 seconds of clarity. Not bad for a mid-tempo track. He trudged up the stairs, skipping the elevator, practically vibrating with leftover energy. But the second his hand touched the door to his apartment, that buzz started to fade. The grin slipped. His stomach twisted, a nervous knot forming right in the center of his chest. He was about to meet someone who might really understand what he was dealing with. Someone Tsukachi had called in, a friend, he'd said. No name. No details. Just they know quirks like yours. Sound-based. Complicated. Izuku had imagined it 100 times. What they'd say. What they'd see when they looked at him. What if they told him he was broken? He slipped inside and kicked off his shoes, careful not to slam the door. Mom, he called, voice hoarse. Bathroom, she answered cheerfully. They're not here yet, don't worry. But hurry, Tsukachi said they'd be here soon. He bolted for his room, peeled off his sweat-drenched hoodie, and grabbed a clean shirt. His fingers shook as he pulled it on. He caught his reflection in the mirror, flushed cheeks, damp curls sticking to his forehead, dark circles under his eyes. He looked like a mess. He ducked into the bathroom, running cold water over his face. He stared at the sink, trying to slow his breathing. This was it. He'd spent 10 years with music as his only lifeline. 10 years bleeding from the nose and ears trying to figure out what he was. 10 years hearing that he was lying or faking or wrong. And now someone who might finally believe him was coming here. He dried his face and caught himself muttering out loud. Please don't be a JRK. Please don't tell me I made it up. His heart thudded in his chest. Knock knock knock. 3 steady knocks echoed from the front door. He froze. Inko's voice called out cheerfully, Izu, they're here. He wiped his palms on his pants and walked slowly toward the door, heart pounding in his ears like the first beat of a song. Izuku turned the corner into the living room, tugging at the edge of his clean shirt, trying to make it lie flat. He expected someone old, serious, maybe in a lab coat, someone who'd speak in soft tones and use words like vocal resonance capacity and audio-kinetic modulation. What he did not expect was a 6-foot-something blonde man in orange-tinted shades, leather jacket, and a grin loud enough to echo. Yo, what up, young Midoriya? Izuku stopped dead in the doorway. His brain flatlined. That voice. That hair. That jacket. That voice. P present, Mike, he croaked, voice catching like a scratched CD. The pro hero beamed and threw up 2 finger guns. The one and only. Name's Hisashi Yamada, but you can call me Mike. Or present Mike. Or, honestly, I'll answer to, hey you with the volume knob, not picky. Izuku blinked. His mouth. Opened. Closed. Opened again. His mom smiled warmly from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a towel. Detective Tsukachi said you liked him, so he thought it'd be a nice surprise. Liked him, Izuku squeaked, horrified. He's my favorite hero of all time. Present Mike let out a big laugh. Well, that's a first. People usually say I'm too loud for that kinda title. Izuku's legs finally moved, only to carry him in a daze toward the couch. He sat down like he didn't trust his knees to keep working. Present Mike dropped into the armchair across from him, legs spread comfortably, all easy charisma and casual energy, but his tone dropped a notch when he spoke again. Tsukachi told me you've got something real interesting going on, kid. Izuku nodded slowly. I heard what happened 10 years ago, Mike said, voice quieter now, more serious. And I've seen some weird quirks in my time, but a music-triggered enhancer with backlash. That's rare. Izuku swallowed hard, hands clasped tightly in his lap. So, Mike said, leaning forward. Wanna show me what you can do? Izuku's heart thundered. This was it. Present Mike wasn't just his favorite hero, he was living proof that sound-based quirks could do more than shout. That they could mean something. And now, he was listening. The sun had dipped low by the time they reached it, a narrow stairwell tucked between 2 buildings downtown, nearly invisible unless you knew where to look. A flickering neon sign above the door read, Vibe Zone, authorized personnel only. Izuku stared at it. That's so cool, he whispered. Present Mike chuckled, leading the way down the steps. This place has been my side project for years. Got tired of trying to test high-frequency resonance in public gyms and blowing out all the windows. Ah, Inko said with a polite smile. That makes sense. They passed through 2 steel doors and into a long hallway. The air changed, heavier, cooler, and lined with soft, bass-thudding silence. The main room opened up like a secret lair. The floor was padded, walls thick with acoustic foam and reinforced panels. One corner held old amps and wires tangled like vines. Another had a wide mat, clearly for sparring or training. Massive speakers lined the ceiling, and the light fixtures gave off a faint blue glow. Izuku turned in a slow circle, mouth hanging open. It's perfect. Mike winked. Soundproofed, isolated, and reinforced. You could drop a beat so hard in here it breaks glass, and the neighbors wouldn't hear a thing. Is it safe for him? Inko asked, her voice low but firm. Mick's grin softened. Absolutely. I promise, I won't let him push past his limit. Just want to see what he's working with. He turned to Izuku, suddenly all business. You ready, kid? Izuku felt his fingers twitch. He swallowed, nodded. I brought my player. One of the safer tracks, low BPM, moderate emotion build. I've logged it 26 times. Mike raised a brow. That's the nerdiest way I've ever heard someone say, favorite song. I love it. Izuku flushed. Inko gave her son a small squeeze on the shoulder before stepping back near the door, her eyes locked onto him like a lifeline. Izuku stepped into the center of the mat. He pulled his headphones over his ears. Pressed play. Outro, by M83. Slow, haunting synths filled his ears. Soft at first. A distant heartbeat. A build like dusk crawling over the horizon. And just like always, the Quirk started to hum. His skin tingled. His breath caught. Then the beat rose. His pulse matched it. Muscles tensed. Eyes focused. He moved. Not like a fighter. Like someone pulled by invisible wires, graceful, fluid, every step synced with the rhythm. His body surged with energy, and even present Mike stepped back slightly, eyes wide behind his shades. Then came the strain. Static down his arms. Chest tight. Head pounding. But he kept going, pushing until the song neared its end. He dropped to his knees the second it faded, gasping. One nosebleed. Right on cue. But his hands were steady. He looked up at present Mike through his sweat-drenched bangs. Well, he asked, voice shaking. Mike crouched down beside him, face unreadable behind the glasses. That, he said slowly, was awesome. Izuku was still kneeling, breath coming in short gasps. Yo, whoa, okay, hang on, kid. Present Mike jogged over to a small shelf, pulling out a worn first aid kit. He knelt down beside Izuku with practiced ease, pressing a cold pack to the back of his neck and handing him a folded cloth. Bleeds like a faucet, huh? Izuku gave a weak laugh and dabbed at his nose. Yeah. It's normal. That ain't normal, kid, Mike said, grinning. But I've seen worse. Sometimes our quirks take more than they give. He shifted, sitting cross-legged now, his gaze steady and curious. So, you gonna tell me what you call it? Izuku blinked, hesitated for a second, then straightened a little. I call it feedback. Mike raised an eyebrow behind his shades. Ooh. Strong name. Fits. Basically, if I listen to music, I get temporary physical buffs, like increased speed, reaction time, sometimes even pain resistance, but it depends on the song. Hisashi nodded along, silent, letting him go. I've tested over 200 tracks, Izuku continued, fingers twitching like they wanted to write as he spoke. Certain BPM ranges trigger certain types of boosts. High BPM with heavy percussion usually leads to explosive speed or strength, but high emotional content, like ballads or nostalgic tracks, tend to trigger weird neurological side effects. Weird how? Like once, I played a song that reminded me of my mom, and I blacked out for 12 seconds. Hisashi winced. Okay, whoa. That's definitely a red flag. But that was before I installed a limiter on the headphones. I embedded a frequency dampener into the left ear cup and programmed a failsafe in the tracklist. My new player automatically cuts off anything over 150 BPM unless I manually override it. See? He pulled the device from his pocket, beaming like a proud inventor. And I made an app that logs my vitals and playback history. Hisashi just stared for a moment. Then laughed, not loud and wild like on the radio, but warm. Impressed. You're 14, right? Izuku flushed. Why yeah. Kid, you're smarter than half the support engineers I work with. Izuku blinked. Really? Really? And the way you've broken this down. That's not just instinct, that's training. You've basically been building your own support gear in secret. Izuku ducked his head, cheeks red. I kinda had to. No one ever believed I had a quirk. It doesn't show unless I push it. And even then, it looks like I'm just running weird or overheating. Yeah, well, Hisashi said, reaching out to ruffle his hair, screw em. What you've got. It's rare. Complicated. Powerful. Dangerous too, but I can help with that. Izuku's eyes widened. You serious? Dead serious, Hisashi said, finally taking off his shades so Izuku could see his eyes, clear, sharp, and focused just on him. Kid, you've been soloing this dungeon with a starter sword and no map. Let's change that. Izuku sat on the edge of the training mat, ice pack resting against the side of his neck, the cloth under his nose stained faintly red. The room was quiet now, just the hum of the old AC and the soft fizz of power from the overhead lights. Present Mike, Hisashi, he'd told him to use informally, leaned back against one of the padded walls, arms crossed, watching him like a puzzle he was excited to solve. Then he spoke, voice softer than Izuku was used to hearing from the usually booming pro. Okay, kid. Listen. Izuku looked up. We're gonna meet up. After school. Regular sessions. Izuku's heart skipped. Wait, really? Really, Hisashi said with a grin. School's almost over, yeah. Summer break's right around the corner. Perfect time to crank the volume and learn what feedback can really do. Izuku couldn't stop the grin spreading across his face, but Hisashi held up a finger. But I've got conditions, he said, rubbing the back of his head. Can't let you blast your brain to pieces in here without a plan. Okay. Izuku said quickly, sitting straighter. Yeah, of course, anything. First, Hisashi said, I want your playlist lists. All of them. Safe tracks, unsafe tracks, any of the ones you've cataloged. I want to know exactly what you've been running into that poor nervous system of yours. Izuku nodded so fast it was a blur. I have spreadsheets, sorted by BPM, emotional resonance, lyrical content. Do you want them alphabetically or by effect severity? Mike blinked. Then laughed. Kid. You're speaking my language. He pushed off the wall and crouched down next to him again. Second, he said, tapping Izuku lightly on the forehead, let me in on the tech stuff. You're doing half the work of a support crew already. I want to see how you're building your limiters, your headphones, your tracker app. We can fine-tune it all together. Maybe even get you some custom gear down the line. Izuku's eyes were wide, almost shining. You want to help me build it. Not just help, Hisashi said, standing up and stretching his arms overhead. I want to see you become the first hero who beats villains with a playlist and a nosebleed. Izuku let out a quiet, awed laugh. In the corner, Inko wiped her eyes behind a tissue, trying not to sniff too loud. The sun was just beginning to dip below the skyline, casting long shadows across the quiet sidewalk. The concrete still held the warmth of the day, and the sky glowed with streaks of gold and violet. Izuku walked beside his mother, backpack bouncing lightly with each step, hands moving in frantic little circles as he talked. And if I can figure out how to integrate mixed sound dampening mic foam into my limiter casing, then maybe I can reduce the auditory bleed from the left channel, which could help with the nerve tremors, but I also thought about switching to bone-conducting headphones for training tracks, which would change the physical resonance, but that might mess with the muscle feedback loop I've been tracking on the heavier songs, so I'll need to A/B test that over, like, maybe, 2 weeks. 3 tops. Inko nodded patiently, smiling softly. Emichim. Oh. And he said he might know someone in support gear who could help me design a backup unit, something like a wearable speaker but low output, and I could program it to pulse in sync with my heart rate so it wait, sorry, I'm rambling, aren't I? He glanced up, sheepish. Inko just reached out and smoothed his hair gently. You've been waiting 10 years to talk to someone who listened, baby. Ramble all you want. He ducked his head, cheeks going pink. Thanks, Mom. She smiled, the kind that felt like sunlight. Then, tilting her head, she added with a chuckle, you know, he's not as loud as I expected. Izuku blinked. Ha. Present Mike, she said. On TV, he's always shouting. I thought the walls might come down when he said hello. But he was calm. Gentle. Izuku thought back to the moment Hisashi knelt beside him, tapped his forehead, and said let me in on the tech stuff. He grinned. Yeah. He's really different in person. Still him, but, like, turned down to 70% volume. Inko laughed, hand covering her mouth. They turned the corner toward their apartment complex, the street now mostly quiet aside from cicadas buzzing in the distance. Izuku's thoughts were already spinning again. Ideas, tests, possibilities. For the first time in years, he didn't feel like he was playing catch-up. He felt like he was on track. And maybe, just maybe, he wasn't alone anymore. The door to Vibe Zone swung open with a low mechanical hiss, the familiar cool air greeting Izuku like a ritual. No uniform. Just a black All Might tee clinging to his frame, green training pants, and his headphones slung around his neck like a badge of honor. His music player was in hand, thumb resting over the play button like a trigger. Hisashi Yamada, present Mike, in all his chaotic mentor glory, was already there, tuning some equipment and bobbing his head to a rhythm only he could hear. Yo, Midoriya, he called out, waving. You ready to blow my metaphorical socks off? Izuku laughed, nerves curling tight in his chest. Hopefully just yours and not, like, my eardrums again. Hey, no promises, Mike said with a wink. But I brought tissues this time. We come prepared in the Vibe Zone. Izuku made his way to the mat, pulling out his gear like a pro. I picked a yellow level track today. It's called Gladiator by Zayd Wolf. Orchestral rock fusion. 120 BPM. Motivational themes. I've run it 7 times. One of the more stable ones. Mick's grin widened as he grabbed his clipboard. Look at you, talking like a chart-topping DJ. Love it. Izuku slipped on his headphones. Let's do this. He pressed play. BLD, sweat, I'm made of it, I'ma get mine, I'm made for this. The track hit like a heartbeat wrapped in steel. Drums crashed, vocals roared with raw drive, and Izuku moved. He surged forward with sharp, clean footwork. Each motion synchronized to the rhythm, every step carrying purpose. His limbs felt light but coiled with energy. The power flooded his system, threading through him like lightning. Mike watched in awe. He jotted notes absently but mostly just stared. Kid moves like a sound wave, he murmured to himself. But then, the twitch. Barely a flicker in Izuku's left wrist. The strain in his shoulder. The telltale tremble as the bridge of the song built to a crescendo. By the time the final chorus rang out, Izuku stumbled into a skid, dropping to his knees, panting. No nosebleed this time, still got it, he wheezed. Earsbead med. Mike jogged over, crouched beside him, and offered a cold pack. You okay? Izuku nodded, grinning through the exhaustion. Worth it. Yeah, Mike said with a laugh. But you're not going orange till I get your limiter caps upgraded. Not letting feedback fry your brain just 'cause the track slaps. Izuku took the cold pack gratefully. Deal. Mike stood, stretching his arms behind his head, and gave Izuku a look like he was considering something big. I've been thinking. Izuku blinked. About what? About taking on another student. Izuku's brows lifted. Met a girl recently. Sound-based Quirk 2. Very different vibe, though. A little chaotic, a little brilliant, a lot angry. Izuku tilted his head. You think she and I could train together? Mike chuckled. Eventually. If you don't explode trying to impress her. Izuku flushed. What? I wouldn't. Mike laughed harder. Relax, Midoriya. You're not the only one with a soundtrack in their soul. Izuku smiled, despite himself. And somewhere deep in his chest, feedback hummed. In his ears to dull. Mike offered him a soda from the beat-up mini-fridge in the corner, and they talked shop until the sun was nearly gone outside. As Izuku packed up his gear, carefully tucking his music player and notes into his bag, he glanced around the padded walls one last time. It already felt like something sacred. He turned to Mike, clutching his straps. Thanks again. For today. Mike waved him off, grinning. Nah, man. You earned this. Then, a little softer, you keep showing up like that. We're gonna make a real hero out of you yet. Izuku smiled so wide it made his cheeks hurt. That night, walking home with the fading summer heat on his back, Izuku felt lighter. His ears still throbbed. His muscles still ached. But his heart was singing. And maybe, just maybe, the world was finally ready to listen. Chapter 2, Team. The walls of the vibe zone hummed softly with silence, the kind of quiet that made everything feel important. Izuku sat cross-legged on the training mat, his custom music player connected to one of the nearby screens via cable. His playlists flickered to life on the big display, rows of colored labels appearing one after the other. Green. Yellow. Orange. Red. And then one final, grayed-out folder with no name. He scrolled past it quickly. Hisashi Yamada, present Mike himself, stood off to the side, arms crossed, one brow raised above his tinted shades. I gotta say, kid, he said slowly, I was expecting, 10 songs and a vibe check. Not a full audio arsenal. Izuku flushed a little but kept his eyes on the screen. I wanted to be prepared. I didn't always have anyone to talk to about this, so I had to catalog it all myself. I've tested over 300 songs, but only about 30% made the final cut. Final cut, Mike echoed, amused. Alright, DJ Danger, let's hear the rundown. Izuku nodded and pointed to the first playlist. White heavy checkmark green list, safe tracks minimal backlash, reliable boosts, suitable for training and warm-ups. Run Boy Run, Woodkid boost, speed and stamina. On Top of the World, Imagine Dragons boost, balance and mood regulation. Shake It Off, Taylor Swift boost, coordination and emotional clarity. Feel It Still, Portugal. The Man boost, flexibility, rhythm-based reaction timing. Pompeii, Bastille boost, stamina and endurance through repetition. Electric Love, Born's boost, focus and calm under pressure. Warning Yellow List, controlled boosts noticeable power with manageable strain. Best used with cooldowns. Gladiator, Zayd Wolf boost, strength and endurance. Warrior, Imagine Dragons X2WEI boost, resilience and pushing physical limits. Centuries, Fall Out Boy boost, durability spike. The Phoenix, Fall Out Boy boost, reflexes, aggression control. Believer, Imagine Dragons boost, mid-fight adaptability and pain tolerance. Whatever It Takes, Imagine Dragons boost, burst movement and accuracy. Orange Square Orange List, dangerous but doable powerful enhancements, but dangerous without supervision. Battle Cry, Imagine Dragons X Sia boost, overall combat readiness. Natural, Imagine Dragons, Nightcore Ver. Boost, reflex and perception increase. No Time for Caution, Hans Zimmer, Interstellar OST, boost, extreme situational awareness. Unstoppable, the score boost, aggressive regeneration and pain suppression. Bleeding Out, Imagine Dragons boost, physical endurance tied to emotional volatility. Legends Never Die, League of Legends, Against the Current, boost, strength and stamina surge. Intense emotional risk. Red Circle Red List, high risk high reward unstable, volatile, or emotionally loaded. Use at great cost. Control, Halsey boost, full body override. Backlash, dissociation. Animal I have become, 3 days grace boost, combat instinct. Backlash, mental instability. The sound of silence, disturbed boost, enhanced perception. Backlash, memory loss. Devil Trigger, Casey Edwards boost, berserker strength. Unknown backlash, never completed. Radioactive, 2WEI orchestral remix boost, explosive power. Backlash, internal bleeding. This is gospel, panic. At the disco boost, defensive surge. Backlash, emotional shutdown. World's smallest violin, AJR boost, unpredictable power spikes. Backlash, panic anxiety overload. Mike whistled under his breath. This isn't just a playlist, kid. It's a battlefield. And you're playing general and soldier. Izuku gave a small smile. I had to be both. And this one. Mike pointed to the grayed out folder at the bottom of the screen. Izuku's hand hesitated over the controls. It's a draft folder, he lied, eyes darting away. Unfinished ideas. Mike raised a brow but didn't push. All right, he said, slowly. You've got more control than half the rookies I've seen. But next time we train, you don't go near red unless I say so. Deal. Izuku nodded, quietly relieved. Deal. But in the back of his mind, eulogy protocol pulsed quietly, waiting. Still locked. Still hidden. But not forgotten. Mike was still staring at the screen, lips pursed, when his eyes suddenly widened like he'd just been hit with a snare drum to the face. Oh. OSHT. Izuku blinked, startled. What? Did I mess something up? Is it the limiter settings? No, it's not you, it's, man, she's probably outside. Mike spun in place, snatched his shades off his head, and jammed them into his jacket pocket. Hang on, Midoriya, hold everything. He sprinted to the door with wild, half-controlled energy, tripping slightly on his own loose shoelace as he yelled back in ASEC, do not open the dark list. Wasn't planning on it. Izuku muttered, completely lost. He stared at the door as it slammed shut behind Mike, silence returning to the room except for the residual hum of the speakers. Then Izuku heard voices outside. A girl's voice, dry, unimpressed. You were supposed to meet me 30 minutes ago. Mix, I know. But this kid was bleeding from the ears while dodging imaginary bullets to panic. At the disco, and I got distracted. The door creaked open again. Mike reappeared, a little out of breath. And beside him, a girl about his age stepped in, dressed in a black oversized jacket, purple earbuds looped around her neck, and a look on her face that screamed I did not ask to be here. Her hair was short and spiky with an undercut, and she had jacks dangling from her earlobes like sleek metal earrings. She eyed the space, unimpressed. Then her gaze fell on Izuku. Is this the nosebleed guy? Izuku blinked. What? Mike clapped his hands together. All right. Midoriya, meet the other sound-based Quirk user I mentioned. This is, Jiro, she said flatly. Kyoka Jiro. She shoved her hands into her pockets and tilted her head slightly at Izuku. So you're the walking playlist. Izuku opened his mouth. Closed it. Was this how other people felt meeting their favorite hero? Because he had so many questions. Mike beamed. This is gonna be so much fun. Kyoka stood with her arms crossed, giving the room a quick once-over like she was mentally scoring it. She looked at the training mat, the tangled cords, the dusty speakers, and then the faint stain Izuku had left a few minutes ago. Chill place, she said dryly. Very murder why? Come on, it's got character. Mike grinned, tossing her a spare water bottle from the fridge. Alright, Jiro, why don't you give Midoriya the rundown? She shrugged and popped the cap. My quirk's called earphone jack. I can plug these. She lifted the cables dangling from her earlobes, into objects and channel sound through them. I can use my heartbeat to blast enemies or listen through walls. Works like a speaker or a mic, depending on how I use it. Izuku was already staring, eyes wide with fascination. Wait, you can amplify your own body's rhythm. Yeah, she said. Kinda gross but kind of awesome. That's incredible, Izuku said before he could stop himself. Do you know the output range? Like decibel max before you feel inner ear strain. Have you ever tried syncing with external instruments? Or, wait, have you experimented with polyphonic beats? Jiro blinked. Okay, she said slowly, glancing at Mike, you weren't kidding. He's really into this. Mike just gave a big ol' thumbs up. Told you. This boy's a walking soundboard. Izuku flushed red but forced himself to speak. Alright, sorry. My quirk's called feedback. If I listen to music, it boosts my physical abilities, speed, strength, stamina, but the stronger the song's emotional or sonic intensity, the worse the backlash. Bleeding, collapsing, short-term memory loss sometimes. Jiro raised her eyebrows. Yikes. I have categorized the songs by risk level, Izuku added quickly. I have a whole system, color-coded playlists, internal cooldown tracking, limiter settings on my headphones. Mike leaned over to Jiro and whispered, very loudly, he made a spreadsheet. Of course he did, she said with a smirk. Izuku gave a tiny, embarrassed laugh. It's just, the music doesn't just power me up. It resonates. Like it hits the parts of me that need to fight. Jiro studied him for a moment. Then nodded. That's kinda cool. You ever sync to live music? Izuku blinked. I haven't tried. Her smirk widened. Maybe I'll change that. Mike clapped once, loud enough to make them both jump. Alright. Future training partners, possibly future bandmates, definitely future Chaos Gremlins, let's start from the top tomorrow. Izuku swallowed. Jiro just cracked her knuckles. This was going to be interesting. Vibe zone, the next day, alright, present Mike said, clapping his hands once as the lights flickered on. Day 2 of Sound Squad training, baby. Who's ready to make some noise? Izuku stood on the mat with his usual setup in hand, headphones resting around his neck, music player clutched in his palm, notes tucked in the pocket of his cargo pants. Jiro stood across from him with her guitar case already open, fingers idly strumming a few chords as she tuned. She hadn't said much since she walked in, but her eyes were sharp. Focused. Mike grinned at the both of them. Today, we're testing live sound interaction. No pre-recorded tracks. Just you two, your quirks, and some good old-fashioned vibrations. Jiro raised an eyebrow. You're not just trying to make us start a band, are you? I would never, Mike paused. Okay, maybe a little. Izuku chuckled nervously and adjusted his headphones. I've never tried syncing with live music before. I'm not sure if it'll work without the digital formatting. Well, Jiro said, plugging her jacks into the guitar's amp, let's find out. She stepped up and started playing. It wasn't flashy, not a shredding solo or wild power chords. Just a steady, rhythmic riff. Bluesy. Raw. Something with heart behind it. Izuku closed his eyes and focused. The room filled with her sound. The vibrations crawled up his legs, rolled through his ribs. He waited for the spark. The hum. The surge. Nothing. His quirk didn't activate. But for some reason, he didn't care. When he opened his eyes again, Jiro was watching him. "Well," she asked. "Anything?" He shook his head. "No, but," he hesitated, then smiled softly. "You're really good." She blinked. "Huh. You're playing," he said, rubbing the back of his neck. Even if it didn't trigger anything, it still felt nice. Jiro looked at him for a long moment. Then smirked, hiding the faintest hint of pink on her cheeks. "You're a weirdo, Midoriya." He laughed. "I've been told." Mike, watching from the side with his chin in his hand, grinned ear to ear. "Ah yeah. I knew you two were gonna vibe." Jiro let the last note fade out, her fingers still hovering over the strings. The amp crackled quietly as the sound died. Izuku shook his head again, slowly. No reaction. Mike tilted his head. "Interesting. You're saying nothing at all." "I mean," Izuku looked down, almost embarrassed. "I felt it. Your rhythm, the pressure in the room, even the emotion behind it, but it didn't do anything to feedback." He reached up and tapped his headphones. "It's weird, but I think it only works when I'm listening through these. Or at least, headphones in general." Jiro raised an eyebrow. "Why?" "I'm not sure," Izuku admitted. "I've tried music on the train, in a car, in stores. I can enjoy it, I feel the pull, but it's like there's a wall between me and the power. Nothing activates unless it's isolated, just me and the music." He looked up, a little sheepish. "It's kind of like I have to feel like it's mine. Like the song is speaking to me alone." Jiro stared at him for a second, then slowly nodded. "Okay. That's actually kinda poetic." Mike scratched his chin. "That explains a lot. Headphones create an internalized experience, isolated sound waves, cleaner channeling, no outside interference. You're syncing with the music mentally, not just physically." Izuku blinked. "That makes a lot of sense." Jiro unplugged her jacks, sliding her guitar back into the case. "Well, guess that means we can't form a band just yet." Izuku smiled. "Maybe someday. If I can figure out how to sync to live sound." She snorted. "Better hurry. I'm not playing backup forever." Mike was already writing everything down like a mad scientist. The training had slowed down after the live guitar test. Mike wandered off to mess with the speaker settings in the next room, leaving Izuku and Jiro alone while they cooled off. Izuku was reorganizing his cables when he heard the faint shuffle of paper. He turned to find Jiro sitting cross-legged near his bag, one of his notebooks open in her lap. "Wait," he yelped. "That's not. It was sticking out of your bag," she said flatly, not looking up. "Relax. I haven't summoned any ancient demons from your data yet." Izuku flailed for a second before slowly sitting down across from her, eyes darting nervously to the pages. She was flipping through his red list logs, one finger tracing the lines of his handwriting. Neatly labeled titles, color-coded symbols, emotional tags, until she stopped on a page with thick, black scribbles slashed through a few entries. Her brow furrowed. "What's with the blackout lines?" Izuku hesitated. Jiro looked up at him, her expression unreadable now. "These are all red-level songs, right? Why are they crossed out?" He glanced away. "They didn't work." She blinked. "Like, they didn't activate your quirk." He shook his head. "No. I mean, they did, but I couldn't finish them." She looked back at the page. The sound of silence, disturbed, control, Halsey, animal I have become, 3 days grace, I tried, Izuku said quietly. I listened. I prepared. But halfway through, my body shut down. Nausea. Pressure in my chest. Once I passed out before the second chorus. Jiro was silent for a beat. Her eyes flicked down to the jagged lines slashed across the page. I crossed them out, Izuku went on, voice low, because I thought if I didn't, I'd be tempted to try again. She closed the notebook gently and looked at him. That's not a weakness, she said. That's called not dying. Izuku gave a soft laugh, hollow around the edges. Still feels like failure. Jiro held his gaze. Feels like survival to me. Izuku blinked at her, really blinked. Then, for the first time since they'd met, she offered him a small, real smile. Not smug, not sarcastic. Just, kind. I'll help you get through them, she said. Eventually. Izuku blinked. Something tight in his chest loosened, not gone, just, less sharp. And then, who's ready for sparring drills with blindfolds? The door slammed open, and present Mike practically moonwalked back into the room holding 2 black fabric strips and what looked suspiciously like a fog machine. Jiro immediately dropped the notebook on the floor with a thud. Dude, what? Izuku jumped so hard he knocked over his headphone case. Blindfolds. Mike beamed. Yeah. One of you can't see, one of you can't hear. Teamwork and chaos, baby. You're unhinged, Jiro muttered. Accurate. Mike chirped. Izuku looked between the BLNDFLDS, the fog machine, and the note-stained floor. He let out a shaky breath, then smiled faintly. All right, he said. Let's go. Vibe Zone. A few days later the summer heat was thicker now, clinging to the walls of the Vibe Zone even with the fans Mike had rigged up. Izuku wiped sweat from his neck with a towel, heart still pounding from the last set. Jiro was sitting cross-legged on the floor nearby, tuning her guitar and sipping on a lukewarm energy drink. They'd just finished a round of sound reaction drills, one of them blasting audio at full volume while the other dodged foam projectiles Mike had gleefully rigged to a beat-based launcher. All right, Mike said, kicking back in one of the old soundproofing crates he used as a chair. That was solid. Jiro, your rhythm game's tight as hell. Midoriya, your reaction time's gotten way sharper. I'm proud of you little nerds. Izuku gave a tired but genuine smile. Thanks. Jiro rolled her eyes. I only missed 2 shots. Yeah, and he only bled once, Mike shot back, pointing a finger at Izuku's freshly bandaged forearm. It was minor, Izuku muttered. Mike chuckled, then got quiet for a beat. The kind of quiet that made both teens glance over. Then he leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. Hey, Midoriya. Izuku blinked. Yeah. Mick's voice lost its usual edge of teasing. You ever think about going to you, eh? Izuku froze. Jiro stopped tuning. The air in the room shifted, subtle but heavy. Izuku stared at him. What? Mike shrugged, but there was something sharp in his gaze now. Measured. Real. You've got the drive. The instincts. The brain for it, definitely. And if you keep training like this, you've got the potential. Izuku's mouth opened, then closed. His heartbeat had gone all weird again, not from the quirk. From something else. He'd dreamed of you, for so long it had stopped feeling real. Why me? He asked quietly. Everyone thinks I'm quirkless. Even now, my quirk's barely stable. Half the songs on my list could kill me. I'm not, you're not perfect, Mike said, shrugging. Neither was I. Neither was Aizawa. You think they only want power at you, eh? Nah. They want people who fight like hell. Who study. Who care. He leaned back again. So I'm asking. Not as a pro. Not even as a teacher. Just as a guy who sees you busting your butt every day. You want to be a hero, Midoriya. The silence that followed felt louder than anything they'd played that day. Jiro didn't say anything. But her eyes were locked on him. Izuku swallowed, throat dry. He wasn't sure what came next. He had spent so long dreaming of you, that the idea of it suddenly being real felt like trying to hold lightning in his hands. What if he wasn't ready? What if his quirk failed him again? What if he, oh come on, say yes, dork. Izuku blinked. Jiro was giving him a look. Equal parts dry amusement and real intent. I'm trying to get in, too, she said, like it was the most casual thing in the world. We could try together. Like a team. She jabbed a thumb toward Mike with a loud but teacher who never shuts up. Hey. Mike started, but Jiro held up a hand. Don't ruin the moment. Mike raised both hands in surrender, grinning. Izuku stared at her, stunned. You, want to team up? With me? Jiro shrugged. You've got good instincts. And I've seen your breakdown logs, your organization is terrifying. I figure if we don't make it in, you can at least start a consultancy business. Izuku let out a breathless laugh, and before he could overthink it again, the words finally came out. I do, he said. He looked between the two of them, his chaotic mentor and his sharp-tongued maybe friend. I want to go to you, Mike grinned so hard it looked like it hurt. Then let's make some noise, baby. Training montage. The summer of sound and sweat. The sun barely had time to rise before Izuku was back at Vibe Zone. Most days started with endurance. Mike had him run sprints in sync with a metronome beat, his movements forced into precise rhythm. At first, he tripped constantly, his quirk didn't activate fast enough, the timing was off, and he kept blasting himself with low-level tracks just to keep from collapsing. Jiro watched from the side at first, unimpressed. Until he finally nailed a full 3-minute loop of Run Boy Run without stopping. She gave him a subtle nod that day. They moved on to reaction training. Jiro stood across the mat, plugged into a speaker. She'd play sudden tones, sharp chords, aggressive frequencies, raw distortion, and Izuku had to dodge foam rounds Mike launched in rhythm with each sound burst. The first few sessions were rough. He couldn't focus on the sound cues and the incoming attacks at the same time. He got hit. A lot. Then, during one session, Jiro riffed a spontaneous solo in the middle of a drill. The unpredictable tempo clicked with something in him. Izuku sidestepped around mid-beat, deflected the next one with his elbow, and landed on his feet in time with the final chord. They both froze. Did you just dodge in perfect sync with my bridge? She asked. Izuku smiled, panting. I think so. She smirked. Nice. Strength training was less elegant. Mike had them carry weighted speaker boxes up and down the stairs. Heroes gotta have core and quads, he shouted, blasting pump-up music through his phone as he jogged alongside them like a sweaty personal trainer. Jiro groaned the entire time. Izuku took notes on how much harder it was when listening to different playlists. He discovered that Believer gave him just enough power to finish a run, but Bleeding Out made him collapse halfway, clutching his ribs. Jiro helped him up without saying anything. Just shoved her half-empty water bottle into his hands and rolled her eyes like he was being dramatic. He didn't argue. He just drank. Mike introduced sparring drills next. Blindfolded. Half-volume sound. Unpredictable terrain. Villains won't fight fair, Mike had said. So we're gonna fight messy. Jiro kicked his butt the first 2 days. He couldn't keep up with her quick footwork and sudden strikes, especially when she used her jacks to vibrate the floor and throw off his balance. But Izuku learned. Fast. By the end of the week, he'd rigged a new headphone feature, emergency EQ filters that adapted to sudden feedback spikes. He caught her ankle mid-kick one day and dodged the follow-up strike with barely an inch to spare. She looked at him differently after that. Not impressed. Not amazed. Just, like he belonged here now. They practiced application drills too. Rescue simulations. Obstacle courses. Strategy breakdowns. Mike graded everything like a chaotic college professor with a foghorn. Izuku filled entire notebooks with notes on his song's impact during different exercises. He even built a mini training simulator in his room using Bluetooth speakers and foam mannequins. One night, Jiro stopped by unexpectedly to drop off a spare audio cable. She caught him mid-simulation, drenched in sweat, muttering song timings to himself, I with natural, nightcore ver, blaring in the background. She didn't say anything. She just tossed him a fresh towel. You're insane, she said. He nodded. I know. As the exam crept closer, the music changed. The green list became warm-ups. The yellow list became his main toolkit. And the red list. He still didn't touch it. Not yet. But he kept it updated. And every so often, he'd stare at the grayed-out folder labeled Eulogy Protocol, finger hovering over the screen before pulling away. Not yet. Not unless he had no choice. Then one day, as the sun spilled through the high windows and the training mats were covered in scuff marks, Mike called them over. You too, he said, pulling down his shades. I've trained a lot of people. A lot. But I don't think I've ever been more hyped to see what happens next. Izuku looked at Jiro. She smirked. They both turned back to Mike and said, in perfect sync, we're ready. The shop was quiet, cool, and comfortably cluttered, just the way Jiro liked it. Guitars lined the walls like trophies, amps sat in neat rows across the floor, and a whole back corner was dedicated to audio tech and custom gear. Jiro was already halfway across the store, poking at a wall-mounted pedal display. Izuku, meanwhile, had gravitated straight toward the high-end headphones like a moth to bass-boosted flame. These have adaptive pressure coils, he muttered, gently touching the rim. Oh man, and resonance filtration, too. This would be perfect for limiter upgrades. You're talking to the headphones again, Jiro said from behind a rack of guitar straps. I'm appreciating their craftsmanship, Izuku replied with a huff. Then the shop bell jingled. Izuku glanced up. And immediately froze. Mike had just walked in, bright yellow shades, leather jacket, way too much energy as usual. But standing beside him was a tall man in black, with dark tired eyes, messy hair, and a scarf draped lazily over his shoulders like a blanket. A vibe so opposite of Mix it was almost comedic. Izuku blinked. There was something about him. Something weirdly familiar. Who's that? He whispered. No idea, Jiro said. But Mike looks weird. She was right. Mike had definitely seen them, his whole body jolted when he spotted his students, like he hadn't expected to be caught. Oh, hey, he said, voice a little too loud. What are you guys doing here? Funny running into you. Jiro narrowed her eyes. You okay? Yep. Totally. Just out shopping for, gear. Stuff. Mike shoved his hands into his jacket pockets way too fast. And this is, my, colleague. The man next to him gave the teens a slow once-over and sighed. Hi, he said flatly. Aizawa Shoyuta. Pro hero. Eraserhead. Jiro blinked. Wait, him. Izuku's breath caught. That's where I've seen him. On old underground footage. Low-res videos of villain takedowns where the camera shook too much to follow the fight. Aizawa looked down at him with eyes that felt like they could see through music. You two are students. Training for the UA exam, Jiro said casually, still watching Mike like what is going on with you right now. Mike let out a weird little half-laugh. Yeah yup. They're, both really promising, heh, Jiro raised an eyebrow. Izuku, sweetly oblivious, just nodded. He's been helping us a lot. You're, Gonna be at the entrance exam. Aizawa nodded. Helping evaluate. I'll be watching. He turned, disappearing into the amp aisle without another word. Mike stood there awkwardly for a moment, then turned to his students. Welp. That was cool, right? Just two co-workers. Hero buddies. Nothing weird. Jiro stared. Mike adjusted his glasses with a nervous little cough. Well. See you tomorrow. Train hard. And just like that, he speedwalked into the opposite aisle. Izuku blinked. Did something just happen? Jiro was already following the noise to spy. Oh yeah, she muttered. Something's going on. The sun dipped lower over Mizutofu, casting a golden hue across the storefronts as Izuku and Jiro strolled toward the small cafe she'd mentioned. Okay, Jiro said, walking just ahead. Mike was definitely acting weird. Izuku adjusted his backpack strap. Do you think he was embarrassed? Because of Eraserhead. He looked like someone caught him sneaking out of a hotel, she said with a smirk. There's no way they're just co-workers. I'm begging you not to investigate. No promises. The cafe was tucked between a flower shop and an old stationery store, all soft wood and warm lights. As soon as they stepped in, the smell of roasted sweet potato and warm sugar hit them like a blanket. Izuku sighed. This place smells amazing. Jiro led the way toward the counter. You're gonna love the mochi. Izuku was mid-nod when it happened. Well, if it isn't little Midoriya. Izuku flinched so hard he nearly collided with a potted plant. Mitsuki Bakugou was already marching across the room like a force of nature, holding a tray of tea and dango, grin sharp and dangerous. Hair tied up messily, tank top and jeans, and enough confidence to flatten cities. Mitsuki-san. Izuku stammered, caught like a deer in headlights. Oh my god, look at you. Mitsuki said, already ruffling his hair with one hand and poking him in the cheek with the other. Still got the same soft face. You moisturizing yet? Or is that just genetics? And is that peach fuzz? Are you shaving? When did your voice drop? Was it this year? Izuku audibly choked. Mitsuki-san, please, Jiro was dying. Shoulders shaking. Silent laughter. Mitsuki turned on her next, eyes narrowing with casual curiosity. And you? Who are you, exactly? Jiro Kyoka, Jiro said, managing to sound chilled despite the situation. Friend. Training partner. Friend, huh? Mitsuki looked her up and down. Cute. You keeping him out of trouble? I try, Jiro said with a small smirk. He kinda brings trouble on himself. Oh, he always has, Mitsuki said with a wave. When he was like 5, he tried to save a stray cat from the rain and ended up getting his whole arm stuck in a drain pipe. Jiro's eyes widened. Mitsuki-san. Had to call the fire department. Little Drama King cried the whole time. So sensitive. Please. Mitsuki just grinned. Anyway, how long you two been hanging out? He ever show you that old All Might onesie he used to wear? Still has it, probably. I don't. Izuku's soul was visibly leaving his body. Jiro just tilted her head. Not yet. Should I ask? Oh, absolutely. It had a little cape and everything. Izuku slumped forward, whispering to the counter, and me. Finally, Mitsuki relented with a laugh. Alright, I'll stop. For now. She gave Jiro a playful wink. You seem like you've got a good head on your shoulders. Keep teasing him. Builds character. Jiro snorted. That's the plan. Oh. And Midoriya, tell your mom to call me, Mitsuki added, turning on her heel. We need a catch-up night. I'll bring the wine, she brings the soda, and we'll talk about how weird our kids turned out." She vanished into the back of the cafe, tray in hand. Izuku stared after her, dazed. "I'm not weird," he muttered. Jiro just sipped her tea and smirked. "Sure you're not." They grabbed a small table by the window, their drinks and mochi between them, the soft hum of jazz playing overhead. Izuku was still visibly flustered, cheeks red, hair mussed from Mitsuki's ambush, and the shell-shocked expression of someone who just watched their social life get punted across a field. Jiro picked up a piece of sweet potato mochi and bit into it like she was completely innocent. "So," she said after a beat, "you gonna tell me how you know Mitsuki Bakugou, or am I gonna have to ask her to send me baby pictures next time?" Izuku groaned, dropping his forehead to the table. "She used to babysit me," he muttered into the wood. Jiro's eyes lit up. "Oh my God. She and my mom have been friends for years," he went on, voice muffled. "I used to go over to their place all the time when we were little. Katsuki was my best friend back then." Jiro nearly dropped her mochi. "Wait. Katsuki as in Bakugou?" Izuku sat up slowly, face tragic. "Yes. That Bakugou." Jiro stared. Then started laughing, like, full-body laughing, face buried in her arm on the table. "Oh my God, this just gets better. You were besties with the angriest explosion gremlin in Mizutafu." Izuku sighed. "We don't talk anymore." Jiro wiped a tear from her eye. "Yeah, I'm guessing that ship exploded." He gave her a deadpan look. "Hilarious. So wait," she leaned in, still grinning, "how long did you wear the All Might onesie? Can we please not, was it fuzzy? Did it have a cape? I'm going to delete myself from reality." Jiro popped another piece of mochi into her mouth, eyes gleaming. "I'm definitely asking your mom for pictures." Izuku dropped his head back down onto the table with a thud. But despite himself, he smiled. Just a little. Jiro was still snacking on the last piece of mochi, but her grin had finally softened. Izuku had stopped burying his face in the table and was sipping his tea, cheeks still pink but no longer steaming. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, just the quiet clink of dishes and the muffled music playing overhead. Then, out of nowhere, Jiro spoke. "I hope we end up in the same class." Izuku blinked. "Huh." She looked away, tapping the rim of her drink with one fingertip. "At you, eh? I mean. Oh." He smiled. "Yeah. Me too." She gave a little shrug, voice more casual than before, but her eyes didn't quite match it. "It'd be weird if we trained together all summer and then just didn't see each other again." Izuku nodded slowly, understanding settling in his chest like warm static. "Yeah. It would," he said quietly. "You're the only person who really gets how my quirk works. And I've kinda gotten used to having you around." Jiro raised an eyebrow. "Used to me teasing you, you mean?" "Well, yeah," he said, laughing. "But also, just you. In general." She didn't answer at first. Just smiled to herself a little and leaned back in her chair, staring out the window. "You're all right, Midoriya," she said softly. He blinked. "That's the nicest thing you've ever said to me. Don't get used to it." But she was smiling when she said it. Izuku lay sprawled across his bed, controller in hand, the title screen of a brand new game glowing faintly on his monitor. He hadn't even started it yet, just hovered over the new game option, thumb twitching. His phone buzzed. "Jiro, ugh, I'm so bored WID today. Mike bailed, wanna hang out or something?" Izuku blinked. He stared at the screen for a second too long, then typed back, "Izuku, just staying in, got a new game, a moment passed." "Jiro, what game also can I come play it?" He sat up straight, like she could see him through the phone. "Izuku, wait, you mean like come over?" "Jiro, yes. Why is that weird? I've literally been training at your side like every day for 7 months. You sweat on everything I own. I think we're past the awkward stage. Izuku stared at the screen, flustered. Then he heard a soft knock on his door. Inku, he called. His mom peeked her head in. Yes, sweetheart. Jiro just texted. She asked if she could come over to play a game. Is that, okay? Inko beamed, her entire demeanor brightening in an instant. Oh. Kyoka-chan. Absolutely, I love her. She hasn't been by in a while. Izuku blinked. You, love her. Inko waved him off. She helped you ice your foot when you wiped out during that playlist drill. Of course I do. She's welcome any time. Izuku texted back, heart thudding a little faster for no reason. Izuku, yeah, you can come over. My mom says she loves you. BTW Jiro, OMG, she's the best. I'll bring snacks. Text me your address again though. BC, I lost it like a dumbass. Izuku smiled faintly and sent it. He didn't even realize he was grinning until Inko stepped into the room with a gentle little smirk of her own. She's a good friend, she said, fluffing his pillow. Yeah, Izuku mumbled. She really is. There was a knock at the door. Izuku scrambled off his bed like he'd been struck by lightning, nearly tripping over his controller cable. I'll get it. But Inko was already at the door, apron on, wiping her hands on a kitchen towel. She opened it with a bright smile. Kyoka-chan. Jiro stood there in a black hoodie with rolled-up sleeves, a bag of snacks in one arm, and her usual "don't mess with me" expression softened just slightly. Hi, Midoriya-san, she said with a little wave. Thanks for letting me crash your house. Oh, of course. Inko beamed. It's always good to see you, dear. Come on in, Izuku's in his room. I was just about to make some tea if you'd like any. Tea would be awesome, thank you, Jiro said, stepping inside and slipping off her shoes. Your place smells amazing, by the way. Ah, just some sweet potato boiling for later, Inko said, already drifting back to the kitchen. Jiro turned down the hall and headed for Izuku's room like she'd been there a dozen times, which, to be fair, she kind of had. Just never for something like this. She pushed open the door. Izuku was standing awkwardly by his desk, half holding a game case, clearly trying to make it seem like he hadn't just cleaned every surface in the room. Jiro looked around. Posters. Soundproofing pads. A stack of headphone prototypes. 3 shelves filled with labeled music drives and notebooks. His laptop was open to a spreadsheet that said, Orange Tier Track Analysis, updated V4. She let out a short laugh as she stepped inside. I'll never get used to someone having more music than me. Izuku flushed. I mean, it's mostly for Quirk research, so, you have a spreadsheet for Quirk-compatible rhythm tempo categories. Don't pretend it's casual. He laughed, rubbing the back of his neck. Okay, yeah. It's not. Jiro dropped her snack bag onto his desk and flopped down on his bed without asking. Alright, let's see this game of yours. You promised entertainment and escape from boredom. I did no such thing, Izuku muttered, already grabbing the second controller. Too late. I'm here. I brought snacks. Your room is suspiciously clean. I'm getting comfy. He sighed but smiled as he sat beside her. And for the first time in what felt like forever, everything felt easy. No, how did you do that? Izuku's voice cracked mid-sentence as his character was launched clean off the stage, vanishing in a spectacular explosion of pixels and shame. Jiro didn't even look up from the screen. As she adjusted her grip on the controller. I pressed the buttons faster than you. It's a skill. You countered my special 3 times. That move has frame-perfect timing. I dunno what that means, but I did it, so. She smirked. Get good. Izuku groaned and flopped backward onto his bed, one arm draped across his face. Dude, he mumbled. How are you so good at this? It just came out. I'm a natural, Jiro said casually, popping a piece of dried fruit from the snack bag into her mouth. You spend your time building headphones. I spend mine dodging my mom's jazz lessons with rhythm games. He peeked at her from under his arm. You've kicked my butt like 6 times. And I'll do it again. I'm scared. You should be. He sat up slowly, narrowing his eyes. All right. No more Mr. Nice Guy. I'm picking a red tier mindset now. Jiro grinned. Oh, bringing out the big Quirk metaphors. You know that means I have to crush you again. Mike would be so proud of this rivalry. They both paused. Then, at the exact same time, loudest training arc ever. They laughed, loud, easy, real. And outside the room, Inko peeked in with a tray of tea, watching them with a smile soft enough to melt steel. She said nothing, just quietly set the tray on the desk and backed out again like a ninja, muttering to herself, "They're so cute." The game sat on pause. Controllers abandoned. Half the snack bag was empty. Jiro was stretched out on Izuku's bed like she owned it, one arm behind her head, her jacks lightly tapping against the blanket with soft, rhythmic beats. Izuku sat cross-legged on the floor, sipping tea and pretending he wasn't still smarting from being utterly wrecked in 6 consecutive rounds of virtual combat. Hey, Jiro said suddenly, eyes still on the ceiling. Wanna try something? Izuku blinked. Sure. She sat up slightly, smirking. Music game. Is this revenge for me calling myself Mr. Nice Guy? Maybe, she said. But it's also kind of fun. I do this with my dad sometimes. I play a song, no lyrics, just the melody, and you try to guess it. Izuku tilted his head. Do I get hints? Absolutely not. Oh no. Jiro grinned as she unplugged one of her jacks from her phone and started tapping it lightly against the wooden edge of his desk. The rhythm was soft at first, 2 beats, a pause, then 4 sharp ones in a row. A pattern. A melody. Izuku narrowed his eyes, concentrating. He mouthed along with the rhythm, trying to place the feel of it. It was familiar. Upbeat. Nostalgic. Wait, is that On Top of the World? Ding ding, Jiro said. Okay, not bad. She switched it up. This time, it was heavier, slower rhythm, pulsing and deep. There was a tension in the way she played it. Izuku closed his eyes. Centuries, by Fall Out Boy. She gave him a nod, impressed. 2 for 2. Let's go, he whisper-cheered. Don't get cocky, she warned, and tapped out a new beat. This one was chaotic. Messy in a way that somehow still worked. Like someone having a breakdown to a banger. Izuku furrowed his brows. Is that, world's smallest violin? Jiro blinked. No way. You got that. It's one of my red tracks, he said, a little too excited. The tempo shift is what gives it away, totally unpredictable. She shook her head, laughing. Okay, you might be a nerd, but you're my kind of nerd. He grinned sheepishly and ducked his head. Thanks. She hesitated for a second. Then, softer, she asked, wanna do one of mine? Izuku looked up. You mean, a song that you made? Jiro nodded. Then she gently tapped a rhythm. It was simple. Raw. No flashy tricks. But it lingered. Izuku listened carefully. The first beat echoed like a soft heartbeat. He closed his eyes and let the pattern wash over him. That's not one I know. Jiro smirked. Good. I wrote it. Izuku opened his eyes, and for a second, the room felt quieter. You're really good, he said, meaning it. She looked away, just a little. I know. Then she tossed a pillow at his face. Your turn. Let's see if you can throw me off. Izuku caught the pillow midair and grinned. Challenge accepted. The sun outside had dipped low, casting amber light through the window, giving the room a warm, soft glow. Jiro sat cross-legged on Izuku's bed, leaning against the wall, a half-empty bag of snacks between them. Izuku was nearby, kneeling beside his desk, flipping through notebooks, half tidying, half distracted sorting. Jiro let her gaze wander. She noticed a slightly open drawer just below his desktop. The corner of a worn, unlabeled folder was barely sticking out. It was darker than the rest, gray, but not like his neat category colors. Dull. Almost cold in how plain it looked. Curious, she leaned forward and reached for it. Hey, what's this one? Izuku looked up. He froze. Jiro's fingers brushed the edge of the folder, just enough to catch the label tucked inside, Eulogy Protocol, scrawled in black ink. No color tag. No track info. Before she could slide it out, Izuku moved. Wait, he said, voice soft but immediate. Jiro paused. Izuku didn't raise his voice. He didn't snatch it away. He just gently reached out and placed his hand over hers, stopping her. That's not one of the others. Jiro blinked. Eulogy Protocol. What, is that like a boss fight playlist or something? He gave her a small, tired smile. No, he said. It's the one I don't play. Ever. Jiro stared at him for a moment. The shift in his voice, the way his fingers stayed lightly over hers, not tense, but firm. Like it mattered. Like it hurt. She let go. He quietly slid the folder back into the drawer and closed it. Silence sat between them for a moment. Then Jiro leaned back against the wall again and crossed her arms. You name your forbidden playlist like it's a final will, you know that. He gave a short laugh. Yeah. Is it just scary songs? Or, he didn't answer. She didn't push. Instead, she said, you're allowed to keep some songs to yourself. Doesn't mean I won't try to steal them eventually, though. Izuku smiled, grateful. Thanks for not digging. Jiro shrugged. You've earned some privacy. She threw a chip at his face. Now sit back down. I'm not done destroying you in rhythm quiz. By the time the sky outside turned a soft lavender, the game was paused, the rhythm quiz abandoned, and the snack bag fully decimated. Izuku sat at his desk doodling something in one of his old notebooks, probably some absurd tempo map he'd never show anyone, and Jiro was lying backwards across his bed, staring up at the ceiling with her legs half dangling off the side. From the kitchen, the clatter of dishes echoed softly, followed by the gentle sound of humming. Jiro sat up. Your mom's humming a melody. Is that? Izuku paused, listening. It's the same lullaby she used to hum when I couldn't sleep as a kid. She says she made it up, but I'm pretty sure she stole the chord progression from an old idol group. Honestly. Jiro grinned. Respect. A moment later, Inko peeked into the room with a bright, gentle smile. Kyoka-chan, sweetheart, would you like to stay for dinner? Jiro blinked. Oh, I don't want to impose, nonsense, Inko waved her off. You're here, your family. And I made enough to feed 2 pro heroes and an overly enthusiastic DJ. Izuku raised a brow. Wait, is that code for a lot of food? Yes, dear, Inko said without missing a beat. Jiro laughed. Alright then. I'm sold. The table was warm and full, steamed vegetables drizzled in soy glaze, grilled fish with citrus zest, and a side dish Inko called Harmony Rice, which she claimed she named when she was in her musical naming era. Jiro caught the subtle theme and smirked but didn't say anything. Inko was in her element, gliding between soft conversation and quiet humming as she set the table. You know, she said, sitting down with her own plate. I used to sing in a group back in high school. Nothing serious, just talent shows and school festivals. Really? Jiro asked, genuinely interested. Oh yes, Inko chuckled. I was the quiet one, of course, but I always had good timing. That's what the others said mattered most. Jiro smiled. That's still true. Izuku, face lightly flushed, stared down at his plate like it was going to save him from this conversation. You okay over there, rhythm boy? Jiro asked, nudging him with her knee under the table. I just wasn't expecting to eat with both of you at the same time, he mumbled. Then consider yourself blessed, Inko said sweetly, raising her chopsticks. Now eat before the rice goes flat. Dinner was filled with laughter, casual teasing, and a quiet, familiar cadence, like a song they all knew without realizing it. No tension. No training drills. Just warmth, food, and soft voices layered together like harmony. And for the first time in a long time, Izuku felt steady. The plates were mostly cleared. Jiro was helping Inko stack dishes in the sink while Izuku dried them beside her, occasionally sneaking glances her way whenever she started humming one of her dad's old bass lines. Outside, the wind had started to pick up. Fast. The sky, once lavender and calm, had turned deep gray, thunder rumbling faintly in the distance like distant bass drops. Bzzzt, Jiro's phone lit up on the kitchen counter. She grabbed it without thinking, glancing at the message as her eyebrows lifted slightly. What's up? Izuku asked, towel still in hand. Jiro turned the phone so he could read the screen. Dad, storm's bad out here. Don't come back in this weather. You're not walking with that gear, and the trains are glitching again. Stay where you are. Guess I'm grounded, she said with a shrug. Izuku blinked. Wait, you're not going back. Not unless I feel like surfing through a lightning storm, she said casually. Before either of them could say anything else, oh, wonderful. Inko called from the hallway, already pulling a folded blanket from the closet. The couch folds out, dear. You'll be perfectly comfy. Jiro blinked. Wait, I wasn't trying to, nonsense. Inko beamed. We'd love to have you. You're always welcome, Kyoka-chan. Izuku flushed slightly. Yeah, of course. Totally fine. No problem. Yep. Jiro smirked. Ah. You sound so thrilled. I am thrilled, he said, voice cracking halfway through the sentence. She snorted and nudged his shoulder. Inko hummed softly as she laid out a spare pillow, moving like she'd done this 100 times before. I'll set up tea in a bit, she said, vanishing into the kitchen again like a musical mom ninja. Jiro flopped onto the couch with a dramatic sigh. Guess I'm yours for the night, Midoriya. He tried not to die. You make it sound like a threat. Only mildly. She pulled out her phone and stretched, hair falling into her face as lightning flashed softly outside the window. Izuku stood awkwardly in the doorway for a second, unsure what to do. Jiro looked up, one eyebrow raised. You gonna stand there all night or bring me that playlist you keep hiding in your brain? He rolled his eyes but smiled. Fine. But I'm picking the first song. The rain hadn't let up. Outside, the city was muffled in soft thunder and the quiet hush of water streaming down rooftops. Inside the Midoriya apartment, everything felt warm. Dim lighting. The faint scent of tea still in the air. A lo-fi playlist played quietly from Izuku's speakers, just instrumental stuff, soft piano and muted beats. Jiro sat on the pull-out couch, wrapped in a borrowed blanket. Her hair was down now, earbuds dangling from her neck like a necklace she forgot to take off. Izuku sat on the floor nearby, back against the couch, legs stretched out and notebook resting across his lap. He wasn't writing anymore. Just tapping his pencil absently, lost in thought. I keep thinking, Jiro said quietly, that I'm gonna mess up the entrance exam. Izuku glanced back at her. What? I mean, I know I've trained. I know I'm good. But, she shrugged. What if my quirk isn't flashy enough? What if I freeze up? What if all that noise just swallows me when it actually counts? He was quiet for a second. Then said, I think about that too. Jiro tilted her head, surprised. You. Izuku nodded, eyes on the ceiling now. I've spent so long just, surviving my own quirk. Taming it. Controlling it. Half the time I still can't even finish the songs on my own list. But you're ridiculously good, she said. Like, you breathe strategy. Yeah, but strategy doesn't matter if I collapse halfway through a fight, he muttered. Or if I panic and pull the wrong track. Or if someone figures out how to shut me down before I even hit play. His voice went quiet at the end. Jiro didn't say anything right away. Then she reached over and gently flicked the back of his head. Ow, hey. Stop talking like you're doomed, she said. You've worked harder than anyone I know. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to show them you. Izuku rubbed the spot she flicked, but he was smiling a little. Yeah, he said. Same to you. Jiro pulled the blanket tighter around her and leaned her head back against the couch. Still weird to think we might not end up in the same class. Izuku looked up at her. We will. She glanced down. Confident, huh? He nodded. I mean, if there's one person I want on my team in there, it's you. For a moment, neither of them said anything. The music played on. The storm rumbled quietly, like the world was catching its breath. You're such a dork, Jiro mumbled, voice softer now. Izuku laughed under his breath. I know. The room had settled into that perfect kind of late-night calm. The soft hum of rain. The muted flicker of city lights through the curtains. Their voices had dipped low, casual and warm, like they'd been talking forever. Izuku leaned his head back against the couch, eyes half-lidded. Jiro shifted beside him under the blanket, suddenly perking up a little. Let's talk about Mike and Aizawa. Izuku groaned immediately. Jiro, please. She smirked, totally unfazed. No, hear me out. I have heard you out. 4 times. You're obsessed. I'm observant, she corrected. You're just in denial. Izuku dragged a hand down his face. You saw them once. In a music shop. Standing next to each other. Standing very close, she said. And Mike got visibly flustered. You don't get that red over your colleague unless you're hiding something spicy. I'm begging you not to say the word spicy while wrapped in my mom's blanket. Jiro laughed, the sound light and warm. Come on, you don't think there's anything going on between them. Izuku muttered something unintelligible. She leaned forward slightly, eyebrows raised. What was that? I said, he sighed, defeated. Maybe. Okay. Maybe there's something there. Jiro gasped like he'd just confessed to murder. Midoriya. You're coming over to the dark side. I'm not coming over. I'm being dragged, he mumbled, face red. Jiro grinned and nudged his shoulder with hers. It's okay. I'll keep the ship alive for both of us. I regret everything. She leaned back again, smug. You should. For a while, they sat in silence, broken only by the rain and the soft lo-fi beats still playing in the background. You know what'd be funny? Jiro said after a while. Izuku braced himself. What? If they're secretly married already and we find out like, mid-semester. Just one day Aizawa's like, class dismissed. I'm going home to my loud idiot husband. Izuku let out a tired laugh. Honestly. I'd believe it. Right. Jiro grinned. It makes sense. Balance. Chaos and chill. He glanced at her. Kind of like us. She looked over, one brow raised. Don't ruin the moment, dork. The laughter faded. Jiro shifted, blanket pulled up to her chin, head resting on the arm of the couch. Her eyes were half-lidded now, her voice quieter, slower. Izuku stayed where he was, still sitting on the floor, back leaning against the side of the couch. His notebook had slid to the side, long forgotten. His head tilted back, eyes shut, lips curled in a faint, sleepy smile. Neither of them said anything for a long while. The lo-fi playlist continued, soft and slow. The rain outside never stopped. Eventually, Jiro mumbled something. Still think Aizawa's the one who proposed. Izuku gave a tired laugh without opening his eyes. He probably used a note card. I'd marry him for that alone. A few seconds passed. Then, you asleep? Jiro whispered. Izuku didn't answer. She smiled, already halfway gone herself. Dork, she muttered. And with that, she closed her eyes. The room dimmed, wrapped in music and stormlight. Jiro curled into the blanket. Izuku, still on the floor, let his head rest against the edge of the couch. And for a little while longer, the world could wait. Chapter 3, The New Age Midoriya Residence, morning. The smell of something warm, miso soup, maybe, wafted gently through the air. Sunlight streamed in through the half-open curtains, cutting lazy beams across the living room floor. Jiro stirred first. Her eyes cracked open, bleary and unfocused, as she realized several things all at once. She was not fully on the couch. She was somehow above the blanket but also wrapped in it like a burrito. Her head was dangling just enough off the edge that gravity was slowly pulling her soul toward the carpet. HHHGH. She shifted with the grace of a potato, arms flopping helplessly against the cushion. A piece of her hair stuck to her cheek. Her jack cords were tangled in the blanket like she'd been in a low-stakes musical fight in her sleep. Then she looked down. Izuku was on the floor beside the couch, fast asleep. Mostly. His legs were sticking out from under a tangle of notebooks. One sock was halfway off. A pillow was somehow on top of his head. One of his headphone cords had wrapped around his arm like a charging cable from hell. And he was snoring. Very softly. Face first against an open rhythm breakdown chart. Jiro blinked. What the hell happened to us? That's when the laughter hit. From the hallway, half hidden by the corner wall, Inko Midoriya was wheezing. Hand over her mouth, shoulders shaking, eyes watering as she stared at the chaotic pile of teenage disaster in her living room. Oh my God, she gasped between laughs. You two look like a band fell on you. Jiro groaned and rolled fully off the couch with a thud, still half-blanketed. This is illegal. Izuku stirred at the sound, sat up mid-snore, then instantly fell sideways into a pile of tangled wires and his own sock. What year is it? Inko finally stepped into view, wiping tears from her eyes. Breakfast is almost ready. But maybe clean up the living room first before it gets up and runs away. Jiro looked at Izuku. Izuku looked at Jiro. Both of them looked at the war zone they had apparently created just by sleeping near each other. And in perfect sync, they both muttered, "We're never speaking of this again." Inko giggled as she disappeared back into the kitchen. Too late, I'm texting Mike a photo. No. The training space felt different today. Clean. Still. No drills running. No foam projectiles flying through the air. No rhythm-triggered chaos. Just the three of them. Jiro stood near the speaker rack, arms crossed and earbuds looped around her neck, a subtle bounce in her heel like she was fighting off nerves. Izuku was pacing with his notebook open, rereading the same page for the third time. Mike leaned against the control table with a very obvious smirk plastered across his face. "So," he said, dragging out the word like it owed him rent, "how was the little sleepover?" Izuku immediately choked on his own breath. What? How did you? Your mom sent me pictures, my dude, Mike said with a wink. You were under a pile of notebooks. Like a sad little DJ who lost his beat. Jiro, unbothered, rolled her eyes. We fell asleep. Aha. Sure. All tangled up, cozy vibes, stormy night, very rom-com, if you ask me. Izuku turned bright red. Mike please, but Jiro just smirked and tilted her head, voice calm as ever. Hey, speaking of cozy vibes, how's Aizawa? Mick's grin froze on his face. Izuku blinked. Wait, no, Jiro's expression was pure, practiced neutrality. He's doing okay. Still, just a colleague. Or have we upgraded to emotionally distant live-in partner who secretly brings you tea at 3 a.m.? Mike sputtered. I don't, right, she said, nodding. Totally platonic. My mistake. Izuku was now fully covering his face with his notebook to avoid second-hand embarrassment. Mike cleared his throat loudly, running a hand through his hair. Oh okay, alright, fine. Mutual ceasefire. Let's get back on track, yeah. Jiro smirked. Izuku peeked from behind his notebook. I think she won. She always wins, Mike muttered, rubbing his temples. I've created a monster. Then his voice softened, losing the teasing edge. But for real, tomorrow's the big day. Both students straightened, the joking moment dissolving into something heavier. Mike looked at them, really looked at them. One hyper-prepared, overthinking rhythm nerd with a quirk that could destroy him if he let it, and one sharp, grounded audio genius who'd quietly become the voice of reason he didn't know he needed. You two have done more in the past few months than most hero students do in a year, he said, voice low. You've pushed each other, held your own, and made music out of chaos. He smiled. You're ready. Both of you. Jiro nodded once. Izuku inhaled slowly, then nodded too. Mike raised a hand. Now get out there tomorrow and blow the doors off. You're not just future heroes, you're sound waves, Jiro finished. And the city's about to hear you, Izuku added. Mike grinned, proud and wild. That's what I'm talking about. The sky had gone that warm, burnished gold again, sunlight casting long shadows across the cracked pavement outside the vibe zone's back entrance. Jiro and Izuku stood just outside the door, shoulder to shoulder. Not talking. Not yet. They both had their gear bags slung across their backs, light, efficient, packed down to exactly what they needed. No excess. No second guesses. Tomorrow was the exam. Tomorrow, everything they'd worked for would be tested, loudly, brutally, publicly. And today, was all that was left of before. Jiro let out a low whistle. Hard to believe we started this summer with you nearly fainting from using centuries for the first time. Izuku groaned. You said you wouldn't bring that up again. I lied. He grinned. You're the worst. I know. Her voice was light, but there was something else under it. A little edge. A little weight. She kicked a pebble across the pavement. Kinda weird to think we won't be coming back here for a while. Izuku nodded slowly. Yeah. It feels like. I don't know. Like this place knows us now. Jiro glanced at him. Think we'll end up in the same class. I hope so, he said without hesitation. You're the only one who knows how to yell at me properly. She smirked. Exactly. It'd be a waste to let that go. They stood in silence for another moment, the sun casting halos around the edges of their hair. The wind shifted, warm, late summer air tugging gently at their jackets. Then Jiro bumped her shoulder lightly against his. "Hey." He looked over. "We got this." Izuku nodded. "Yeah." She started to walk toward the station, throwing a glance over her shoulder. "Don't oversleep tomorrow, Midoriya. I'm not letting you miss our big debut." "I set 4 alarms," he called after her. "One's in Morse code." Jiro barked a laugh, flipping him a lazy wave as she disappeared down the sidewalk. Izuku stood there for a second longer, hand resting on the side of the Vibe Zone's doorway. He looked up at the sky. And smiled. The U-gate stood tall and imposing in front of Izuku. This was it. The big moment. Months of training. BLD sweat. Screaming. Rhythm drills. Headphones. Jiro roasting him constantly. And now he was finally, tripping over absolutely nothing like a loser. His foot caught on air, apparently, and he went flying forward, arms flailing, brain already preparing a speech for the EMTs. "This is it. This is how I die. On the first step. They're going to write death by untied shoelace on my hero license, gotcha." Suddenly, his entire body jerked to a stop midair. He blinked, then slowly looked down. His body was floating just an inch off the pavement. Glowing pink. "I'm either dead or hallucinating. Please be hallucinating. I don't want to die like this." "Okay, now just," and there, a voice said cheerfully. The floating sensation stopped, and Izuku gently dropped back onto his feet, wobbly but upright. He turned around, wide-eyed. A girl with short brown hair and the brightest smile he'd ever seen gave him a friendly wave, her fingertips still glowing faintly. "You alright?" she asked. "Kinda looked like you were about to go full faceplant." Yeah. Yes. Totally fine," he blurted. Thank you, I didn't mean to, gravity is stronger than I expected today," she giggled. "I get it. Nerves, right." Before Izuku could even finish forming a coherent response, or reassemble his pride, another voice called out behind him. "Did he trip again?" Jiro walked up, hands in her hoodie pockets, eyebrows raised in her usual unimpressed way. Izuku groaned. "Not helping, Jiro." The girl giggled. "You two know each other." Unfortunately, Jiro deadpanned. Izuku looked completely betrayed. "Wow. Jiro Kyoka," she added, holding out a hand. "He's been my training partner for months." "Oh," the girl said, shaking her hand. "I'm Ochako Uraraka. Nice to meet you." Jiro gave her a quick once-over, friendly but analytical, like she was already mentally classifying her by combat rhythm. "Nice to meet you too." They all walked inside together. The auditorium was massive. Rows and rows of folding chairs stretched out in perfect symmetry across the polished floor. Spotlights beamed down on the main stage like a concert about to start. Izuku, Jiro, and Uraraka found seats near the middle. Uraraka gave them a little wave before peeling off toward another row, leaving the two of them alone. Jiro dropped into a seat, stretching out like she owned the place. Izuku sat beside her, eyes wide as he looked around. Then a heavy thud landed in the seat on his other side. His spine stiffened. Slowly, he turned his head. Katsuki Bakugou was sitting right next to him, arms crossed, leg bouncing like it was barely containing rage. He glanced over, eyes narrowing the second he saw Izuku. Jiro looked up from where she was adjusting her earbuds. "Oh," she said. "You're him." Bakugou's eye twitched. "What the hell's that supposed to mean?" Izuku sank lower in his chair. "We're gonna die," he whispered. Jiro just smirked. "Nah. But someone's gonna blow a fuse before the test even starts. TCH. I figured I'd see you here," Bakugou muttered, voice just loud enough. Still chasing something you'll never reach, huh? Izuku's shoulders tensed. I'm not trying to compete with you, Kaken, he said quietly. Good, Bakugou sneered. You'd lose. And that was when Jiro slowly pulled out one earbud, turned her head, and stared straight at him like she was mentally measuring his grave. Hey! Bakugou blinked. What? Shut up, boom boom boy. Izuku froze. Bakugou's eye twitched. What did you just call me? Boom. Boom. Boy, she repeated, casually popping her earbud back in. Sit down. Be quiet. Try not to melt your desk with your angry little thoughts. You wanna go, she didn't even flinch. Do you wanna fail this exam because you picked a fight with someone smarter than you and louder than you? Bakugou looked like he was about to explode. Izuku looked like he was about to evaporate. And Jiro. Jiro was already back to scrolling her playlist, completely unfazed. The silence that followed was glorious. Bakugou growled but said nothing, sinking a little deeper into his chair. Izuku leaned over slightly. You're terrifying. Thanks, Jiro said, not looking up. You're welcome. The lights dimmed slightly. A spotlight hit the stage. And then, yeeoo. The auditorium practically shook with sound as none other than Present Mike exploded onto the stage, one hand holding a mic, the other pointed dramatically into the crowd. Welcome to you, High's entrance exam, baby. Students flinched. A few clapped. One kid near the front visibly fell out of their chair. Izuku and Jiro just blinked. Jiro leaned sideways and whispered, you think he rehearsed this with fog machines and crowd mics? Izuku whispered back, he made me run timing drills to this exact entrance track. This is the fog machine moment. Jiro snorted. On stage, Mike was still going strong. This is where you bring your dreams, your hopes, and your eardrums to be tested under pressure. Are you ready? Not even a little, Izuku muttered. You'll be fine, nerd, Jiro whispered back. Just don't trip into a robot. They chuckled softly, shoulders brushing as they leaned closer, and that's when it happened. A sharp, decisive chair scrape echoed from a few rows ahead. A tall boy with perfectly combed blue hair and spotless glasses stood up like he was testifying in court. Excuse me. Mike paused, one eyebrow twitching mid-speech. The blue-haired boy turned, pointing toward Izuku and Jiro with the energy of a disappointed librarian. You two in the back, yes, you. You should not be talking during this important presentation. It is incredibly disrespectful to the pro-hero giving the instructions. Izuku froze. Jiro raised both eyebrows. The boy turned back to the stage, voice still projecting like a school bell. Additionally, if there are 4 types of combat robots listed in the brochure, why has only 3 been mentioned? Is this a typographical error or a deliberate omission? A beat of silence. Then Mike grinned. Well, look who's ready to take the mic. The auditorium jumped again. Mike continued, casually unfazed. That's what we like to see, students with attention to detail. And to answer your question, my mechanically inclined friend, yes, there are 4 bots, but that 4th one's a trap. We'll get to that in the next slide. The blue-haired boy nodded sharply and sat back down. Izuku leaned toward Jiro and whispered, who is that guy? Jiro sipped from a water bottle and muttered, class president of the planet. Present Mike flipped to the next slide with a dramatic spin, finger pointing straight at a towering digital image of 4 robot silhouettes. Alright, listen close, because this part's important. The screen lit up with 3 labeled robots, 1 point. 2 point. 3 point. Each with brief descriptions, size, agility, attack style. But looming at the back of the image was a towering, unlabeled 4th figure, twice the size, all jagged armor and glowing eyes. And here we have the fourth robot, the zero-pointer. Students began to murmur. Mike grinned, clearly loving every second of it. This bad boy is huge, menacing, and totally not worth your time. Why? Because, say it with me, folks, it's worth 0 points. A few confused mutters answered back. Mike didn't care. This sucker is just a giant obstacle, meant to test your reflexes, your situational awareness, your ability to not get crushed under 12 tons of robot doom. Izuku sat up straighter, scribbling, avoid zero-pointer, no points, death bad, in his notebook. Jiro leaned in, whispering, so, basically, the giant boss fight we don't touch. Exactly, he whispered back. It's a distraction. Sounds fun, she muttered, cracking her knuckles. Mike threw one last dramatic point to the crowd. So unless you've got a quirk made of rocket fuel and plot armor, I suggest you run. Got it. Half the room nodded. The other half looked pale. Mike winked. Good luck, little sound waves. You're gonna need it. The screen went dark. Silence fell for a beat. Then the shuffling of dozens of students rising from their chairs filled the space. The testing room was dead silent, save for the soft scratching of pens and the occasional nervous cough. Rows of students hunched over their papers, brows furrowed, clocks ticking down with brutal efficiency. Izuku's pencil flew across the page like a man possessed. Hero history question, check. Combat ethics, double check. Quirk theory and energy expenditure ratio breakdowns. Check, check, and triple check. He was in the zone. The kind of test zone only nerds like him dreamed of. Every late-night cram session, every note he'd taken with Mike and Jiro, every page he'd memorized, it was all here, flowing from his brain like water. He filled in his last answer with 20 minutes to spare and leaned back in his seat, blinking in disbelief. Did I, just finish early? Did I actually do well? He looked around, some students were still biting their nails, some stuck on question 6. A few even had their faces in their hands. Jiro sat a few rows over, one leg crossed over the other, casually spinning her pen. She met his gaze and gave a tiny nod like, yeah, you survived. Izuku smiled. Okay. Phase 1. Nailed it. The crowd of students was funneled into different sectors of the testing arena, each one designed to simulate a section of city ruins. Crumbled buildings, broken streets, dust in the air. It looked like a battleground straight out of a video game. Jiro adjusted her gear bag over her shoulder and glanced at the sector sign over her head. Looks like I'm in C. Izuku nodded. I'm in B. There was a pause, nerves thick in the air, the quiet hum of everyone stretching, prepping, shaking out their hands. Jiro turned to him, expression unreadable for a moment. Then she held out a fist. Don't die. Izuku huffed a laugh, raising his own hand to bump hers. You too. Their fists tapped. Just like that, Jiro gave him a short wave, turned, and disappeared into the crowd heading toward her gate. Izuku checked his music player for the 5th time. Battery full. Headphones synced. Playlist sorted. Tempo locked. His fingers hovered over the Start Playback button for track 1. He looked around and spotted Urarika near the front of the group, smiling nervously, bouncing lightly on her toes like she was trying to shake off the tension. He hesitated. Then stepped forward. Hey, you there. Green 1. Izuku flinched. And of course, there he was. Blue hair. Glasses. Justice. Tenya Ida. You shouldn't be socializing moments before a combat trial. Ida scolded, arms stiff at his sides like he was about to issue a citizen's arrest. We are here to focus, not make friends. I wasn't, Izuku started, but Ida was already moving on, shouting something about tactical DSPLN to another student who was just tying his shoes. Uraraka gave Izuku a sympathetic smile before turning back around. He sighed. Then, quietly, he slipped his headphones on, blocking the world out with a soft click. A hum. A quiet pulse. Then a soft voice from his playlist's opening track whispered, "You ready to run?" Izuku exhaled slowly. Yeah. He was. The gates creaked open with a slow, metallic groan. Sunlight spilled onto the broken street ahead. Concrete rubble. Toppled lamp posts. A simulated war zone built to test everything. Dozens of students stood at the ready. Izuku tightened his grip on his music player. Headphones secure. Fingers hovering over his first track. Present mix voice exploded through the loudspeakers. There's no countdown. Go. The crowd burst forward like a wave, students sprinting, shouting, activating quirks. Drones lifted off from rooftops. The mechanical screech of combat bots filled the air. Izuku didn't move. Not yet. He pressed play. Run boy run, woodkid white heavy checkmark a low, steady rhythm kicked in, drums building like war. The moment the beat dropped, something inside him shifted. His pulse synced to the tempo. His steps got lighter. Breathing steadied. Muscles activated like they remembered the rhythm before he did. And then he was moving. Fast. First encounter, two one-point robots. A bot rolled into the open ahead, targeting a student with a narrow burst cannon. Izuku darted forward, using the beat as timing, sidestep, jump, spin kick to the sensor eye. Crash. Bot down. Another wheeled around the corner. Izuku used a low slide to get under it, then jammed one of his spare headphone wires into the exposed vent, overcharging it. Boom. Second one exploded in sparks. Plus 2 points total. 2 points further down the street, he spotted one of the taller units, heavily armored, clunkier. Izuku ducked into a side alley, used the vertical wall for momentum, then launched off it, twisting midair and landing a kick directly into the back of its neck hinge. It staggered. He switched his weight, used the percussive breakdown in the song to time a double pull strike to its sensor module. Crunch. It collapsed. Plus 3 points total, 5 points. Izuku skidded to a stop near the base of a crumbled parking garage, chest heaving, the song still pulsing in his ears like a second heartbeat. So far so good. Focus. Don't overdo it. Keep moving. Track buff, white heavy checkmark green list agility endurance minimal backlash, tingling in fingertips. No strain yet. Run boy run, woodkid white heavy checkmark track time, 3:10 elapsed. Izuku ducked behind a half-collapsed pillar as another bot rolled past. He waited for the beat drop. Run boy run. This world is not made for you. He launched from cover, sprinting straight up the side of a broken street sign, flipping midair and landing HRD on the of a 2-point bot. His elbow slammed into the hatch release, clank. Then his boot met the power core. Bang. Plus 2 points total, 7 points. A trio of one-pointers appeared from the alley ahead. Izuku dashed forward with the tail end of the rhythm still pulsing in his limbs. Run boy run. They're trying to catch you. He spun through them like a whirlwind. Elbows. Knees. Headphone wire WHP. 3 down. Plus 3 points total, 10 points. His chest heaved. He slowed, dropping behind a barricade, pulling open a water pouch on his belt. Then, screams echoed through the crumbling arena. Students ran. Dust and concrete filled the air like a storm. Uraraka was trapped, pinned between slabs of rubble, arm twisted unnaturally, eyes wide with fear as she looked up at the mechanical giant barreling toward her. The 0-pointer. Izuku ran. His breath came ragged. Vision tunneled. The music still playing in his ears had almost faded, his last song running dry. His legs burned. His balance shifted mid-sprint. And when he jumped, when he leapt from the broken ledge to reach the bot's shoulder, he missed. Crack, he slammed into the metal plating near its arm. Rolled. Hit the pavement with a sickening thud. His shoulder dislocated instantly. His left arm twisted beneath him. The wind ripped from his lungs. Pain screamed through his body like a warning siren. He saw double. And then, he heard her again. Help. His hand shook as it reached for the music player still clipped to his belt. He didn't think. He just pressed play. Radioactive, 2WEI Orchestral Remix Red List, High Risk, Environmental Surge Internal Shock Possible. A deep, warping rumble hit his ears. Whoa, oh, oh, the bass kicked in like a thunderclap. Power surged through his veins, even as BLD spilled from his mouth. Buffs, strength pain inhibition reflexes adrenaline, max backlash warning, cardiac strain, muscle micro-tearing, left shoulder instability. Izuku screamed and forced himself upright. He stumbled, dragged one leg, pushed forward anyway. The 0-pointer towered over the street now, arm lifting like it was about to crush her. Izuku pushed off the ground with his good leg, every step like knives through his ribs, and used a fallen slab as a springboard. Midair, teeth gritted, eyes wild, he raised his only working arm and threw a grappling wire straight into the bot's eye port. Welcome to the new age, to the new age. Whoa-oh, electricity danced from the plug-in point. The bot spasmed. Stalled. But didn't fall. Not yet. So Izuku climbed it. Clawed his way up with one arm. And jammed his speaker jack into its core panel, overriding the signal. I'm radioactive, radioactive. Boom. The 0-pointer exploded. Flames and smoke curled into the sky. Izuku was thrown backward, slammed into the dirt, unmoving. But the rubble near Uraraka shifted, just enough for her to crawl out. Coughing. Hurt. But alive. Izuku's vision blurred. The music faded. So did the world. But before he blacked out, he smiled. Everything was white. Too bright. Too still. Izuku groaned softly as he blinked awake, squinting against the light flooding the ceiling above him. His body ached everywhere. He was wrapped in bandages, chest, arm, even his DMN forehead. His mouth tasted like metal and regret. He shifted. Bad idea. Okay, whoa there, young BLD. A familiar voice boomed from somewhere way too close. Izuku flinched. Mike. Yeah, it's me. Present, Mike said, then immediately lowered his voice to a dramatic stage whisper. Sorry. Forgot this isn't a stadium. Izuku turned his head. Mike was perched backwards on a chair next to the bed, sunglasses off, hair slightly flattened on one side like he'd been pacing for hours. And just to his left, Jiro. Sitting on the windowsill, arms crossed, earbuds tucked in, but not plugged into anything. She wasn't looking at him. Not yet. Mike grinned. You pulled some serious moves out there, Midoriya. 0-pointer, evac assist, near sacrifice, real hero stuff. You broke like 17 school safety guidelines. But still. Hero stuff. Izuku blinked, groggy. Did I pass? Before Mike could answer, Jiro finally spoke, quiet, dry, and very much Jiro. You dumbass. Izuku blinked. Huh. You weren't supposed to fight the 0-pointer. Her eyes met his. Let alone climb it. With one arm. While bleeding. I didn't mean to, Izuku started, panicked. Someone was screaming and I couldn't ignore it and, I know, she said, and her voice softened just enough to crack him wide open. That's why I'm not yelling. A beat. Then she muttered, but I was planning on it. Mike stood and stretched. Recovery girl patched you up. Said you'll be sore for a while but no long-term damage. Might wanna, not choose death as your go-to strat next time, but hey. You made an impression. Izuku let his head fall back into the pillow. I'm never listening to that song again, he mumbled. Mike snorted. Fair. Jiro finally walked over and gave him a light tap on the arm, not his injured one. You scared the hell out of me, she said softly. He smiled, woozy. Yeah. Me too. The sun hung low in the sky, warm and orange, casting long shadows over the sidewalk as Izuku and Jiro walked side by side toward the station. Izuku had a brace on his arm and 3 band-aids on his face, but he moved okay now, slower, stiffer, but walking. He had insisted he didn't need to be carried again, which Mike had threatened out loud at least twice before they left. Jiro had her hands in her hoodie pockets, earbuds dangling loose around her neck. They hadn't said much. Not because it was awkward. Because it wasn't. Because they didn't need to fill the quiet. Not until, so, she said casually, without looking at him, what song did you listen to? Izuku flinched so hard he almost tripped on a sidewalk crack. Which one? He asked, poorly pretending he didn't know exactly what she meant. Jiro gave him the side eye. Don't make me pull out your playlist logs. I know you used a red. He rubbed the back of his neck with his good hand, sheepish. I didn't mean to. It just happened. I heard her screaming and my fingers moved before I thought. She didn't say anything right away. Then, so. He groaned. Radioactive. The orchestral remix. Jiro blinked. Then let out a low whistle. DMN. That one's a beast. Yeah, he muttered. I think it tried to kill me. Jiro snorted. It kinda did. You looked like you'd gone 12 rounds with a vending machine. I felt like it too, he said, but smiled despite himself. Jiro looked at him again, softer this time. Well. You saved her, she said. So I guess the song's got a solid first track record. You think I should keep it? You have to, she said, smirking now. It's your first accidental hero moment. You're legally required to keep it. I'll even help you redesign the label. Izuku laughed. What, like, BLD Lost Banger Mix? Jiro snorted. I was thinking, Midoriya's dumbass decision files. Rude, he muttered. But he didn't stop smiling. And neither did she. The lights were low. The speakers were off. For once, the training space was completely quiet. Too quiet. Izuku sat backwards in a chair, fidgeting with the corner of his notebook. Jiro lay sprawled across the floor, kicking her feet and occasionally letting out long, drawn-out sighs of despair like she was dying of boredom and suspense at the same time. Still nothing, she asked without looking up. Izuku glanced at his phone for the 50th time in 10 minutes. No email. No text. No courier droid. No mic with dramatic entrance music and confetti. Just, nothing. Jiro groaned. They said end of the week. It is the end of the week. I know. That's why I'm dying. Same. Silence. Then, Mike walked into the room carrying 2 sodas and a snack bag like this was just another Tuesday. Yo, how are my future chart-topping Soundwave heroes doing today? Both teens sat up so fast they nearly snapped their necks. Jiro pointed dramatically. Do you know? Did it come? Izuku asked, already halfway to his feet. Mike froze mid-step, eyes wide behind his glasses. Know what? The results, Mike, they said in perfect unison. Mike blinked. Then grinned. Oh, those results. Yeah, I might have seen. Something in the faculty system, Mike, Jiro said, voice dangerously low. He held up both hands. Nah, not saying a word. You know the rules. Official hero results come in official hero mail. I'm not about to get scolded by Nizu and Eraser in the same day. Izuku looked like he might burst into flames. Jiro threw her arm over her eyes and flopped back down. This is torture. Mike tossed them each a soda. Nah. This is suspense. Builds character. Makes the victory sweeter. I'd rather have instant gratification, Izuku mumbled. Welcome to being a hero, Mike said, cracking open his own drink. They all sat in silence again. Jiro cracked her eyes open. You could at least play something to distract us. Mike raised an eyebrow. Like what? Something loud, Izuku muttered. So we don't hear our own thoughts anymore. Mike chuckled, walked over to the control panel, and hit play. The speakers filled the room with the first notes of a funky jazz rock fusion track with a bassline that practically danced. Jiro finally smiled. Okay. This helps. Izuku nodded slowly. A little. The music pulsed through the room now, upbeat, jazzy, slightly chaotic. Jiro was nodding her head along from the floor, Izuku tapped his fingers against the soda can in rhythm, and Mike was casually bobbing behind the control table like a DJ at an empty concert. The tension had almost melted away. Almost. Then the side door creaked open. A shadow passed the threshold. Both Jiro and Izuku looked over just as Aizawa Shoyuta stepped into the room, hair half-tied, scarf coiled loosely around his neck, a thermos in hand and the most exhausted expression known to man. He took one step in. Saw them. Froze. Jiro blinked from her spot on the floor. Hey. Izuku waved weakly. Hi, Eraser head. Aizawa stood silently in the doorway for a full second. Then turned around mid-step like he was about to reverse his entire existence. Mike noticed and immediately burst into laughter. Ahaha, you thought you could sneak a nap in here, didn't you? Aizawa stopped, shoulders tensing like he was calculating how fast he could erase this entire room from his memory. I didn't know it was occupied, he muttered, already halfway gone. Jiro sat up, grinning. Don't worry. You can pretend we're invisible. No. That's your quirk. Mine's leaving. Mike called after him, come on, Shoyuta. You can vibe with us. Aizawa didn't even turn around. I'd rather vibe with unconsciousness. The door closed behind him with a soft click. Izuku blinked. Was that? Yup, Jiro said, sipping her soda. Is he always like that? Mike grinned. Only on days that end in Y. The door clicked softly shut behind Aizawa, leaving a lingering trail of awkward silence in his wake. Then, Jiro let out a low chuckle from where she sat cross-legged on the floor. You know, she said, glancing at Mike with a wicked little grin, he didn't deny anything when he saw us. Just immediately left. Mike raised a brow behind his shades. And what exactly are you implying, Miss Kyoka? Oh, nothing. She leaned back on her hands, clearly not implying nothing. Just that someone looked real guilty walking into their secret boyfriend's hangout space like he forgot he had teens living here now. Izuku made a quiet, strangled noise into his soda. Mike held up a hand. Mutual ceasefire, remember. Jiro tilted her head, all innocence. Mike pointed at her like he was invoking a sacred oath. Ceasefire. I don't ask about the Grey Label playlist or the time you cried watching that documentary about doomed jazz bands, and you stopped trying to get me to say, my man, on record. Jiro smirked. Too late. I have audio. Full confession. Gonna turn it into a remix. Mike dramatically gasped. Traitor. Betrayer. Bassline betrayer. Izuku, still trying not to laugh, muttered, this is the best stress relief I've had all week. Mike struck a pose with his hand on his chest like he'd been mortally wounded. You wound me, children. You wound me with your sass and your soundboards. Jiro rolled her eyes. Don't act like you don't love it. I live for it, he admitted, flopping into a nearby chair. But I'm still not telling you if you passed. Izuku groaned. Please. No spoilers. Jiro had just picked up a nearby drumstick and was lightly tapping it against Mick's chair leg in time with the music, while Izuku nursed his soda like it was keeping his heart rate down. Mike was in the middle of a dramatic story about being banned from 3 different radio stations for creative volume management when, crash. Thunk. Glass shattered. Something metal and angry zipped through the side window like a missile, ricocheted off a speaker stack, and embedded itself into the floor with a high-pitched electronic chirp. Everyone froze. Jiro blinked. Did we just get attacked? Mike stood slowly, blinking at the still vibrating wreckage of the U.DLVRY drone now half sunk into the wood. A tiny panel popped open on the back. 2 neatly folded letters shot out with a polite ding. Izuku stared. Did our results just break in? Mike walked over and picked up the letters, flipping one in each hand with a dramatic flourish. Well, he grinned, looks like you wanted to make an impact. I think the drone wanted to kill us, Jiro muttered, getting to her feet. Mike held the letters out like golden tickets. Kyoka Jiro. Izuku Midoriya. You ready? Izuku swallowed hard. Not even a little. Too bad, Jiro said, snatching hers. We're opening them together. Izuku took his, hands shaking just slightly. Mike stepped back, hands raised like a conductor at the edge of a crescendo. Alright, kiddos. Let's drop the beat. The drone still sparked gently in the corner like it was ashamed of its own entrance. The letter in Izuku's hands had just unfolded, a small click sounding as the projector activated. And then, flash. A glowing figure burst to life in front of them, all might, in all his tailored glory, standing tall with that trademark chest puffed out, sunbeam smile. Young Midoriya. I am here. On hologram. Izuku nearly dropped the letter. Jiro snorted. You jump like an old TV. The hologram of All Might gave a booming laugh, striding forward like the room was a stadium. You have taken your first step into the world of heroism. While your written exam score was excellent, and your combat points totaled a respectable 10 villain points, Izuku's stomach did a somersault. You showed us something far more important. When others ran, you moved toward danger. Without hesitation. Without promise of reward. You placed your body between a student and destruction. Because of that, you've been awarded an astounding 78 rescue points. Izuku's brain short-circuited. Jiro nearly choked. Wait, 78. Your final score, 88 points. Which means, All Might gave a blinding grin, arms stretched wide. You passed. The hologram flickered into golden light, fading out like a spotlight dimming on the final note of a concert. Silence. Izuku stared at the empty space, eyes wide, letters still glowing faintly in his shaking hands. I passed, he whispered. Jiro gave him a look. You vaporized the grading curve. His voice cracked. I got 78 rescue points. Mike fist pumped from the side like a dad at a sports game. That's my boy. Knew you had it in ya. Izuku blinked rapidly, a little dazed. Does this mean I'm going to you, eh? Jiro rolled her eyes and clapped him on the back. No, it means you're moving to Antarctica. What? Yes, you absolute dork. You did it. And for a moment, Izuku just stood there, smiling wide and glassy-eyed as everything he thought he could never have finally felt real. Izuku was still reeling, blinking back the emotion threatening to spill over his cheeks. 88 points, he whispered. Alright, calm down, drama boy, Jiro said, lightly nudging him aside. You're hogging the spotlight. She cracked her envelope open with way less hesitation, unfolded it, and the projector sparked to life once again. Kyoka Jiro. All Might's voice exploded through the room like a thunderclap. Jiro sighed. Oh great. I am here, and if I'm being honest, I had a very hard time writing this one. Izuku blinked. Wait, what? The hologram of All Might stood in a much more casual stance than Izuku's version, arms crossed, expression a bit sheepish. You see, you were really hard to score. Your quirk doesn't cause big flashy damage. Your tactics were subtle, your movements precise. You disabled targets using shockwaves and sound interference. Frankly, the robots hated you. Jiro blinked. Good. You took out 2 3-point bots, 3 1-pointers, and 1 poor 2-pointer that short-circuited from feedback. Izuku turned to her. Wait, seriously. You only used sub-frequencies. Shoo, she said. Let the man rave. And while your rescue point total wasn't as dramatic as some of your peers, All Might continued, you did help 2 students who were panicking and disoriented. That shows leadership. And compassion. And I quote from a fellow proctor, she gave this kid a juice box and told him to stop crying. Jiro blinked slowly. I don't remember doing that. Mike clutched his heart. I love you. So. For a combination of combat precision and minor rescue efforts, your total score is 67 points. Which means, welcome to you, hi. The hologram gave a confident thumbs up before fading in a burst of static and trumpets. Jiro folded her letter like it was no big deal. Cool. Izuku stared. You gave someone a juice box. It was that or slap him, she said with a shrug. Mike was wiping away an emotional tear. You're both gonna make me cry. This is like a coming-of-age musical with battle damage. Izuku laughed, the nerves finally unraveling from his chest. Jiro glanced at him, smirking. So. Looks like we're in the same class after all. Izuku nodded, grinning. Team Loud Idiots, assembled. The apartment smelled like victory. More specifically, like sweet soy glaze, fried dumplings, and the slightly burnt edges of celebration cake. The table was stacked with food, drinks, and enough snacks to fuel a sports festival. Inko was bustling between the kitchen and the table with a sparkle in her eyes and an unstoppable smile. You passed. You both passed, she beamed, placing another bowl of gyoza down with the kind of energy only a truly proud mother could generate. Izuku was seated at the table, still in mild disbelief as he nursed a glass of melon soda. Mike leaned over him dramatically. This calls for a Volume 11 celebration, baby. Mike, we're indoors, Jiro muttered, from where she was already plating her second helping. The door swung open again, and in came her parents, Kyotoku and Mika Jiro, carrying a full tray of takoyaki like they were entering a concert. Hope we're not late to the encore, her dad said, striking an air guitar pose with the tray. Mika elbowed him lightly. Down, rock star. Let the kids breathe. Jiro turned bright red. Oh my god, you said you'd be normal. We are being normal, her mom said sweetly. This is just the amplified version of normal. Izuku tried not to laugh into his drink. They're so cool. Don't encourage them. Kyotoku grinned, setting the tray down. Heard our girl scored with style. You blew out some bots and got praised by All Might, Soundwaves never looked so sharp. Dad, please. Sweetheart, we're so proud of you, Mika added, giving her daughter a quick side hug. Even if you gave some poor crying kid a juice box. Mike choked on his drink. You told them. Jiro shouted, glaring at Izuku. I didn't say anything. You giggled. That's betrayal. Inko slid into the seat beside Izuku, smiling warmly. I'm just happy you're both okay. And starting you, together, she trailed off, her eyes misting a little. Izuku reached over and gently took her hand. I'm happy too, Mom. Everyone fell quiet for a moment, just enough to feel it. The warmth. The music playing low in the background. The smell of good food. The beat of something beginning. And then Mike raised his soda. To the loud ones, the brave ones, the ones who hit play even when the odds are stacked. Everyone raised their glasses, even Jiro, grudgingly. To you, To heroes. To the next track.